Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andry, Associate Editor of Audioholics, and I am here with...
Rob H. This is AV Rant. We're a question and answer show about audio, video, and home theater. And welcome back, Tom. Thank you very much for
a
joining us
question
once
and
again.
answer show about... And that's not going to work.
It is what
It
it is.
is
It's not even a
descriptive.
tagline. It's exactly what it is.
That is saying,
I
this
said
is a
something.
gray animal with a long trunk and a tail.
That's
and
right.
2 ears. That weighs
There it
300.
is. That's saying elephant first, not even making you guess afterwards from that description.
I have Groot on my shirt. Can you see Groot on my shirt?
I can if I move this little window. Oh, there he
You
is.
see it? See,
Yeah.
I got the
Yeah.
Starry Night thing with is it Picasso or somebody? I don't know who it is.
That's very nice, Tom. Before we go on, I have to say thanks to Ray Coronado, Lee Overstreet, and Austin
How
Pond,
did
who
that
joined
go?
me last
I
week.
didn't listen to it. I didn't have
I think it went pretty darn well, honestly.
Was
We didn't.
Lee a disruptive force? Because that's what I want to know. Because I assumed that Lee was a disruptive force.
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say Lee was pretty much the only guy who ever jumped in, like, just conversationally, because most of the time I was kind of saying, okay, Austin, you talk. Okay, Ray, you talk now, and directing traffic that way. But Lee's like, hey, I know how to talk without Rob pointing at me and telling me to do so. So, no, but honestly, the show was good. It's too bad you didn't get a chance to listen to it, because I think it went pretty well.
I intended to. I intend to still. I still have intentions to do that.
If you want to watch the video and hear the audio only version, it's only going to take you 4.5 hours. You know, it's all right.
But
We went 2 hours and 15 minutes. We
Oh.
went a little over time because there was Matt at the very end of the podcast whose question I really wanted to get to, and we did. So
good.
there
I
you
don't
go.
know what he asked, but I'm sure you gave him a good answer. Yeah. So last week I went to a wedding, and I saw Dina. I don't know if you saw it on the
Yes, on the Facebook page.
Facebook post. I posted a picture of me and Dina together. So I went and stayed at Dina's house. Me and the whole fam stayed at Dina's house for the night. She was a gracious hostess. Jay was not around, but we got to see her kids and stuff like that, and it was really, really cool. So,
That's cool.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Spent the night there. Went to the beach. Talked a little bit about AV. But
Okay.
I invited her to be back on the podcast.
Did she say subwoofer like I say subwoofer?
She does say it a little bit like you do, a woofer. I said SVS.
Woofer.
SVS has been talking about maybe sponsoring us. She said, "Who's SVS?" So I was like, "Oh God, you've been away for too long."
She was your co-host for how many years? 2.5, 3 years?
3 years,
Something like that. And it didn't get ingrained after that amount of time.
We're just washed over her like water. All right, this is AV Rant, the podcast where we answer your AV and home theater questions. To get your question answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by sending us an email. It's the easiest way to do it, to rob@avrant.com, tom@avrant.com. Please send it to both of us, and not Rob H at AVRant or Rob or Tom A at AVRant, just Tom or Rob at AVRant. Info works too. It comes to me, but you want to send it to Rob as well.
Oh, wow.
In fact, if you send it to Dina, it comes to me as well. I imagine if you send it to Liz, it'll come to me as well. But I think Liz stuff still goes to Liz. I think that's the case. I don't know. But send it to Tom or Rob at avrant.com and just ask us your question. We'll be happy to answer it on the podcast. You can also go to www.avrant.com and ask there. Facebook.com/avrantpodcast. That's all one word. You can post something up there. We get posts there all the time, so we answer or answer on the podcast, usually both. I guess at the Twitterverse, is that
The
still
tweet
a thing?
tweets?
Are we still
Yep.
doing that?
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely active on Twitter. So that works for me.
Reflect for Rob at First Reflect or at avrant_Tom for me. I will get it if you send me something.
Okay.
I will notice that it is there. I have uninstalled Facebook from my phone. But I have not uninstalled Twitter because Twitter is not as annoying as Facebook is. Facebook was just all the time reminding me that people want my attention. That I don't care. Now, okay, a couple of weeks, month or so back, I sent out on Facebook, a post about how I wanted a new computer for my wife.
Yes.
Because she was going to divorce me. Which is always the case, but this time it was about the computer. This particular time, the computer was really driving her crazy, so somebody suggested that the NUC, the next unit of computing from Intel,
Yes.
which I bought all the components for, and then needed to get an operating system. And to get the operating system, I needed to have a big enough zip flash drive, which I did not
Mhm.
have. And then I figured out that the HDMI cable had mini on one side,
Right.
which was I did not realize that, so I was like, oh, I'll just go down. I'm like, listen, I can get this cable for $2.50 for mono price
That's
with
right.
$2.50 of shipping, or
Yeah.
I can go to Walmart and pay $17.95.
Uh-huh. Sounds about right.
Yeah, so I did not do that. Had to wait for the shipping to come. So I got everything, and I put it all together, and started getting the thing that the Windows to install, and Windows said there's we can't find a drive. I'm like, oh, I must have to format it or something. So I started looking and Googling and stuff like that, and cursing. I used all my curse words a number
Uh-huh.
of times, to be honest with you. I mean, because
No,
that usually helps.
you had a SSD installed, is
I
what you
do.
said.
I have an
Okay.
SSD installed,
And that's what it
256.
couldn't find.
It could not find that.
Okay.
And it could not find it because there's actually two boards. There's like the SSD board, and when you first open it from the bottom, there's
Hmm.
the SSD board, and then underneath that is the rest of the board with everything else. And you have to take the SSD board, you have to like flip it up to get to that, to put on the memory and put in the. I put the wireless connection
Yeah.
majigger on there, and the RAM and something else. I don't remember what else. Well, anyways, so I put all that stuff in there, but when I did not realize that top board, or it's technically bottom, but the board that has the SSD drive, the hard drive on it, actually had a connection that I had disconnected.
Okay. Okay.
So, it took me a little while to think about that, and I just like, well, let's just open it back up and look at it, and then I saw it. I was like, clicked it back in, put it back together. I think it took about 10 minutes to install the OS.
You went with what, Windows 7?
8.
8. Okay.
Yeah, went with 8 because 10's coming out. They're gonna get it
Yeah.
for free anyway.
Well, yeah, if you're installing it off a USB flash drive onto an SSD, it should go zippy fast. So.
Yeah, it was it's a USB 3.0 as well,
Yeah.
and it was the 3.0 thing, so it was crazy fast. It's still doing, like, every time it shuts down, it's like, we're gonna do 120 updates. I'm like, whatever, I don't care.
Yep.
Do whatever you want to do. Whatever you got to do. It's pretty zippy, man. It's got the i3, I think, processor, and 8 gigs of RAM, and 256.
Is the first thing it did ask you to reserve your copy of Windows 10? I'm getting a
Yeah,
little
it's
annoyed
exactly
by
the
that
first thing
bug.
it did. Yes, yes. I don't care. It's free. I was like, yeah, go ahead, reserve it. I'll take it.
That's right.
It certainly can't be crappier than this thing is. I don't much mind it, to be honest with you. People really hate this thing. I mean,
No, 8.1 ended up all right.
It's fine.
It's all right. It's fine.
There's a couple extra steps to get to the screen I want to be on.
Yeah.
But I actually don't mind that little start screen with all the little.
Oh, well, don't worry, that's going
tiles.
away now. Now that's going to be hidden behind a start button in Windows 10.
I
So,
don't really care about that. They can hide whatever the hell they want. I don't. I use that. It is so nice and fast. I'm like, I could watch YouTube videos again. Like, it was for a while I could not watch YouTube videos on that thing. It would stutter, on my PC. So
Well, the real test will be Daily Motion or IGN's video player. Man, oh man, do both of those sites need to update their video
Oh yeah,
players.
I have it on there.
Oh, yeah.
Though I did find
too much flash.
Deathmatch. Have you ever seen Deathmatch? It's I think I know it's a screw attack. I think is the name of the website that it comes from. They take
Okay.
like two characters from different. Like the one I watched was who did I watch? Superman and Goku. That was one, and I
Okay.
watched.
Is it animated?
Yeah, there was some animation. Lex
All right.
Luthor and Tony Stark, which was a good one. I thought was pretty good. Anyways, yeah. So it's like the videos are like 20 minutes long. They talk about all the math behind it, like considering this and that and this and this. I'm like, really, you guys?
So they're actually analyzing who would win in a fight.
Yeah,
Like,
and then they
okay.
do the animation. They have somebody do the animation. So
Understood.
It's not too bad. I was kind of like that. All right, I guess we should do this podcast thing.
You have wasted all your remaining energy talking about your computer.
Okay.
and
So my
hypothetical superhero fights.
next door neighbor, my across the street neighbor, he's kind of one of the scally guys. The guys who sit in the front yard and scowl at people as they go by. Like, everybody knows him as the scowler dude. And he has like an epic mustache, like one of those big handlebar ones that go down his face and everything.
Yeah.
Anyways, he just retired like this year, and his job was he had his own business where he mowed lawns. Took care of lawns. So landscape dude.
Okay.
So all he does is scowl at me as I'm mowing my grass, right? So I mowed my grass.
Not doing it right.
Yeah. Oh, clearly not. He actually told me that a number of times that I'm killing my lawn and I should be ashamed of myself. So I'm out there and I have a push assist mower, right? And I have a fairly big yard. I did not realize how big my yard was until it was far, far too late to do it. I'd already bought the house at that point. So, I'm out there with the push assist mower, but I push assist in name only, right? It's push assist in that MCACC room corrects.
Oh,
It's kind
oh,
of does something. Like
poor
if you
Pioneer.
pick it up and you engage the push, you can see the little the tire spinning. No torque, no power, nothing whatsoever. Does nothing.
Works on asphalt. It's
Yes.
very handy for grass.
Very handy for going over very flat surfaces. I have like a St. Augustine grass, which has like a 3 or 4 inch thatch underneath it. It's just spongy, and I thought I was going to die. Thought I was going to die, and there he is across the street, just going, scowling. He's got this mower that I swear he could probably sit on. It has like a V8 on it. It has like pipes coming out the top of the dang thing, right? Pipes.
He's got handlebar mustache. I think that's a necessity.
I'm surprised he doesn't have Harley on this. Like,
Yeah,
he's
it
not a
goes with
Harley
the
guy.
look.
He's a Norton guy. Norton is
okay.
I didn't know that. Yeah, but Norton. I went over there. I was like, I'm a motorcycle guy. Let's talk about motorcycles. He's like, so have you built one from scratch? I'm like, no, I have not.
Then you're
Is
not
that
a motorcycle
question?
guy to him.
Apparently, I do not count. So I was out there and he was out there, and it became like a battle of wills from across the street. Like, either I was gonna die mowing my yard before I was gonna go inside and get a drink of water. It just wasn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
I have my pride. Just feel his judgment from across the street.
This is what we missed last week, folks. It's 15 minutes of absolutely nothing to do with home theater.
Nothing. I have things to get off my chest, and this is my time to
That's
do
right.
it.
You got 2 weeks piled up. That's absolutely true.
I haven't even talked about the wedding yet, which, by
That's
the way, I
right.
was outside in South Carolina in the frickin' summer, and it was
Ah.
like 92 degrees,
Uh-huh.
and I was in a 3-piece suit,
Yeah.
happy as a clam. I was
Yeah.
just pleased as peach.
Yeah, I don't know why people have weddings in the summer. Like, it's going to be unbearably hot.
I don't care that you have it in the summer. Just have it inside in the AC. How hard is that?
True enough. But
Like
you
always.
always have the photos. The photos are always done outside.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing better than having all the photos of the wedding party taken before the actual ceremony. Everyone's baking out in the sun. It's just fantastic.
Yep. Well, they're from Minnesota, so they were like, "Oh, it's pretty nice out here." I'm like, no. It's actually exactly no.
They stored the cold.
Yeah, that's right. They're like frost giants. All right. So, first of all, let's go ahead and thank our listeners of the week. Listeners of the week become that way by, in some way, supporting the podcast. They may go to www.avrant.com and click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link and give us a PayPal donation, which some of us have. Some of them have. I'm sorry. We have a donation from Michael, from Kyle, and from... I think he told us how to say this, didn't he?
He did. It was a robot voice, though, so I'm going with Sushmit.
Shushmit? We're going with Shushmit.
That's what it sounded like from the robot voice. I'm sorry
Okay.
if that's not right. That's what the robot voice
Anyways,
told me.
Michael, Kyle, and Shushmit, thank you very much for your donations.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was waiting
Yes.
for you to come on.
I know.
back up.
I know. I was looking at the name thingy again. But
Oh, it's not
I got distracted.
All right, and we also have some support from Scott, who gave us a shout out in gave us a shout out in his next YouTube video of his home theater build.
Yeah, Scott is the fellow who is showing. He's making videos all the way along every step of the process as he is attempting to have his home theater built or building some of it himself. And yeah, we talked about that last week. You missed that.
I missed that one. All right, well, hey, thanks, Scott. And
he's cool.
Caesar let us know that our Stitcher radio feed doesn't seem to be updating. That's fantastic. I'm doing exactly nothing about that, but I'll try to look at it later. And Paul McDonald had you over last Wednesday so that Paul could give you big stacks of cash.
I think he got a pretty good deal, I have to say, and he thinks so too. So
sure he did.
we're fine with that.
And he bought some of your unused speakers and a receiver. Which one? Can you tell me?
My Onkyo TX SR705, the oldest one I had. Oh, actually, that's not true. I still have my even older Yamaha, but
Yeah, that's a decent little receiver. And you spent a couple hours setting everything up, and you shot some videos that will get edited and uploaded any second now.
definitely
Literally,
not any second now. Well, it depends on when you post the audio version of this podcast. By then, I might have,
Look at you
downloaded them
trying
onto
to
my computer.
passive-aggressive me. Don't passive aggressive me, Canadian.
Uh,
I'll get the podcast up when I get the podcast up.
everything is true. We're on it. Everything is the way it's supposed to be.
Anyways, thanks guys for your support in all of your various and sundry ways. Now,
Yes, very much so.
We got a tagline suggestion from Jason, the WebMD of AV.
Mm-hmm.
That's not bad. It's like a place to go for information, but it's also a place to go to get if you're sort of uh, hypochondriac, but in the AV way, and looking for things that are wrong with you. I don't know. We'll think about it. We're still working on this tagline thing. I think we're
Yeah.
narrowing it down. What Rob said today is definitely not it. But in the future, we've had some good ones in the future. So I mean, the past. So we will continue to work on it. If you have any tagline suggestions, feel free to let us know. Now, and I do want to say thank you to Rob and I mean to Ray and Austin and Lee for filling in for me.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
That was great. I might take more vacations. Anyways, news. Are we going to talk about? I don't want to talk about any of this news. On the Onkyo's got a new series of AV receivers to the TXRZ because it's very close to the X, the RX.
Sorry to say this. I'm going to have to step out for just 1 second. Apparently, there's a very important call coming, so I'm just muting my mic. I'll be right back.
All right. He's muting his mic, whatever. Good. We can skip the news. No, I'll just say there's a new Onkyo series of receivers, the TXRZ. The first two models in the series are the RZ800 and the RZ900, both topping out driving 7 speakers simultaneously. The focus seems to be on better power supplies and higher end DACs that you absolutely do not need. 384 kilohertz by 32-bit DACs, or as we like to call it, useless. All right. Value Electronics and did a flat panel shootout that was held at CES, and it says that the LG OLED still looks the best, with the Samsung SUHD coming in a second place. Amazon Prime Instant Video joins Fox and MGO in offering some of the earliest HDR content. That's high dynamic range content, and that's once again only on the Samsung SUHD TVs. And over on Facebook, Joshua linked us up to a little event thing that happened at the Hoover Dam, where 60 projectors turned the Hoover Dam into a record-setting projection screen. And guess what? They still didn't need 4K for that either. Now, we've not talked about any of that. Let's go on to some of our questions. First, we're going to talk about Cliff. Cliff's got a new home. And until he finishes his basement, his theater setup will be in his great room. The home is under construction, so right now he has the opportunity to pre-wire for his subwoofer locations. But where should he put them? He's got a Martin Logan Dynamo 1500X or 1500X subwoofer, which is a standalone subwoofer. I say that because his other subwoofer is an RBH Sound SI1010P in floor sub. So he's got some subwoofer placement options that you don't have, meaning that he can put one on his floor theoretically someplace other than where you might want to put it.
I imagine it could go in a wall too. Do you think?
No, it's probably too well. I don't know.
Yeah, it might be too deep.
I think it's
see
probably
what you
too
mean.
deep.
Yeah,
They usually are. His great room is quite big. It has the dining room, the kitchen, the living room, all in one area, which is how great rooms generally are. If you think of it as a rectangle, half of the rectangle, if you go lengthwise, half of the long ways, half of the rectangle is for the kitchen and dining room, and the other half is for mostly for this area, and it's set up so that it's going across the short side of the rectangle. So the problem here is that, at least from what I see it, on one side of where his TV will be is a big empty dining room. And the other side looks to be, from what I can gather here, a sliding glass door, maybe, or a window. I'm guessing it's a window. So he's got a hard surface on one side and a big empty space on the other.
yeah.
And there's really no super good places to do the side by side, or opposing corners thing, because in one corner he's got the entryway, and the other in a second corner he's got looks like a pantry, so you can't put it in there,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, it's his kitchen over in the left rear of the room.
Yeah, so really your options here are pretty limited, because you could theoretically take and if you think about the rectangle, right, and if he
Hmm.
wants to pressurize the entire area, he could put the freestanding subwoofer near his couch, right, which would be kind of
Okay.
in the middle of the room across the short side, kind of the middle of the room across that short side, right against that wall, and then directly across from that, it would be basically the in ceiling. I'm sorry, in floor subwoofer could be in the floor directly across from that, but that would be right next to like the kitchen cabinets. So not a super good option uh, on that side. Are you still there? I think Rob keeps going out. I don't know what's going on with him. Oh yeah, he's going out. So frankly, Cliff, I guess if it were me, I mean, first of all, that would be the first thing I would think about. I would think about putting one right next to my couch, which would be midway down that shorter wall, be right kind of uh right near those glass windows, but it'd be like between the entryway and those glass windows, and the other side would be over by your kitchen. But then you're trying to pressurize the entire area. The other option may be to try to place one. Oh man, dude, it's really not a very good option. You could place one kind of behind your couch next to that. And I'm not sure if there's like a wall next to that entryway. You could put that dynamo sort of behind the couch to the right of the couch, and then in front on the front wall up there, you could try to put one up there because that's not really opposing, but it's better than nothing because the other side of your room, from what I can tell, that entire side wall on the other side from the home theater has got cabinetry, a small space, a sliding glass door, and then a corner, and that's pretty much it. So you could put front left corner if you think about all the way over in the other side of the dining room where you're
Hmm.
in. But then you've got a subwoofer blaring in your dining room.
Well, yeah. Sorry about the interruptions there.
That's
Stuff
okay.
was
We
happening,
got
but yeah. I mean, the way I would look at it is, I always come back to the point of, well, what are we trying to accomplish with two subwoofers? And we're trying to accomplish eliminating the worst standing waves in the room if we can. And in this case, like front to back doesn't really make sense because there's sort of a hallway in the middle of the back.
Yeah, I didn't even see that to be honest with you, but you're right.
Yeah, so it's not really an enclosed rectangle. So really, I think we're only dealing with one major standing wave here, which is from left to right across the entire space. So that's going across his theater area and his kitchen slash dining room area. So my ideal, if there's any way to do it, would be to sort of have one that is over to the left side of his room, would be like right beside the counter that's next to his
That's
sink.
the first thing I said, and the other one
Yeah.
by his couch.
And the other one, yeah, like to the right of his couch. So that way, at least you're eliminating that side to side standing
I
wave.
don't see that happening, dude. I don't care if it's
Yeah,
in
that's
floor or not. I mean, not only that, it's going to be in floor right next to not right next to a countertop, and that's his bar.
well, the in
So
floor
I mean,
could
that's
go
going to
by
have
his
water in it
the
or
in
whatever.
floor could go by his couch. The in floor could go on the right side of the room, and
Oh,
the
well, he's going to put
freestanding
a
one.
dynamo all the way on. I think not, sir. That's not. There's no way she's going to let
So I
that
mean, this
happen.
this might be the perfect opportunity for exactly what like sub EQHT is all about, which is you don't have the ideal placement of having subwoofers across the room from one another. You do have both of them up at the front of your room or, just sort of in random places. And then it does its process where it uses the delay, the distance setting to try and get things phase matched at the primary seat. If nowhere else, at least at the primary seat, they'll be phase matched there. Which Gene even commented on avrant.com. He was like, that's what that's about. That's why you don't always just set it to mono with the exact same delay. It's like if you don't have the ideal placement, then you do want different delays because you want them phase matched. So that might be the most practical solution here, which is just you put the two
He's
subs
got. I know that he's got an X4000 because
right.
I know this guy
Yeah,
personally, and he definitely has an X4000. So
yeah,
that is certainly what he's going to end up doing anyways. But
yeah,
if it were me and I couldn't do the whole kitchen thing, then I would
yeah.
put one in the rear behind the couch,
Yep.
the right side behind the couch, in the
Yep.
front wall someplace as
Yeah,
far
front
to
wall.
the
Yeah, sort of the
far into
middle.
the dining room as I
Yeah,
could get it.
middle area of that front wall. Yeah, I agree with that. And then allow sub EQHT to do its thing, which will not be ideal, but it'll be
He's going to build a basement, so
yeah, exactly. It'll be a fair sight better than nothing at all. So
why you gotta complain all the time, Cliff? Why you gotta complain?
It's not complaining. It's a darn good question because it is a challenging setup. For
It is
sure.
a challenging setup. Your other option too, and you just might want to consider this is don't bother with the in floor sub and just have one sub. It's not ideal,
Right.
but you don't want to install an in floor
Oh
sub.
yeah. If these were two freestanding subs that you could move around,
Yeah,
then that's one thing.
I would probably just take that dynamo and put it wherever the heck you can,
Yeah,
and then
the
not.
in-floor sub, maybe that's the one that should go in like the middle of the front wall. We're talking the entire space here, but like at the front wall,
But what I'm
middle
saying
of
is
the
he's not going
room.
to pull that thing out of the ground.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So if the option is placing the in what is it
In
is
floor.
in floor, right?
Yeah.
If it's placing it and leaving it there forever, or not placing it and using it in your home theater later, I would not place it and just use the Martin Logan for now.
Yes, good point. Yeah. Yeah.
That's one thing to consider
It's
because
very tough when you're talking about a permanent installation of a
I
sub
doubt he's
where
going to be able to pull that
it's
thing
not
back.
an ideal room. If this was an ideal enclosed rectangle and you're like, yeah, I can put one at the middle of the front wall and the middle of the back wall, I'm like, yeah, go ahead, install your in-floor subs there because that's fine. But this is, yeah, I need a little bit more trial and error. So,
Yeah.
all
You
right,
might
Cliff,
leave
that's
that
the
one in
best
the
we can do.
box, and then just use Martin Logan for now and go with
Yeah.
that. Greg has what appears to be, has what appear to be his surround speakers, he calls them rears, mounted on the ceiling facing more or less straight down directly above and just slightly to the left, to either side of his couch. I did not click on this. I will click on it now, and hopefully my
It's
computer
an
will not
illustrative
crash.
picture.
He says that he sometimes pulls a couch about 1 foot forward of the rear wall when watching movies. He'd like to know if he should leave the speakers as they are, or would it sound better to have them aimed toward the back wall so that some of their sound will bounce and make it seem as the sound is coming from behind his couch. Oh yeah, that is kind of weird.
So, I mean, first things first, these are surround speakers. They are not surround back speakers, which means that if you had ideal placement, their sound is meant to be coming from either side of your seat. It's not
Right.
meant to be coming from behind you. And so, I mean, a lot of people think that your fourth and fifth speakers in a 5.1 setup are back speakers or rear speakers. You hear that all the time, but they're
Yeah.
not. They're supposed to be to your sides. So in this case, I would not suggest aiming them at the back wall to make their sound in any way bounce off that back wall and seemingly come from behind you, because that's not where the sound is supposed to come from anyway. So the real question is, should he do anything to these ones that are mounted to the ceiling? They're basically firing straight down right now. Should he point them at all or fine the way they are?
Well, I mean, he's the only one that's heard them. Let's start with
Mm-hmm.
that. So if he's the only one that heard them and he's got some opinions about how they should, they sound good or don't sound good, or if he thinks they sound better. First of all, they're on it looks like an Omni mount, right? Which is adjustable.
Yep.
So if you want to bounce them off the back wall, that's fine. You put in an absorptive panel back there, so
Yes.
kind of defeating the purpose, bouncing them off the back wall. Let's just start with that. But no, I would not. I would just have them kind of, it may be towed in just a little bit towards the center.
I don't even know if I do. I'd have them fire like straight down.
Yeah, they look like they're actually angling kind of forward.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, that
So
might
what
be
I
an
think that
optical
is
illusion.
because when
It's
he
possible.
puts his I don't think so. I think when
Yeah.
he pulls his couch forward, they're kind of aiming at
Right.
the couch,
Yeah,
which
No,
would
I
be
mean,
fine too.
yeah. I mean, the surrounds are supposed to be diffuse and to either side of you. I would honestly, I would imagine that these are in ceiling speakers. Like, just put that in your mind as though they were in ceiling speakers. And if they were in ceiling speakers, you would have them just firing straight down. You wouldn't angle them in any direction, because
Yeah.
where they're placed right now, they are on either side of the couch, and that's fine. So that would be my recommendation anyway. Just straight on down, not angled anywhere. Yeah.
Yep, I'm okay with that too.
All right.
Once again, they are adjustable mounts. Play with them, dude.
Yes, you could. Absolutely. But yeah.
All you need is a ladder or stand on the couch, which is what I would do.
Or a very helpful friend or understanding significant other who
Or
would go up on the ladder
really-
for you while you sit on the couch the entire time.
That's right. Get an NBA player to come over and adjust your stuff.
Or just, strap a couple of big paint buckets to both feet. I mean, that's what, The guys who finish drywall on ceilings, that's what they do. They just put on those stilts or they strap a couple of big paint buckets on the bottom of each foot so they don't have to go up and down a ladder. They're just, now they're that tall.
Mm-hmm.
There you
Or
go.
you could
Tricks of the
just
trade.
maybe like get like one of those adjustable paint stick thingies, for rolling paint, and you just push it around that way. All right. Anyways, this is all stupid ideas. Michael wants to know when the newly announced Denon X series AV receivers will be available to purchase in Canada, and what price points. What the price points will be. He's mostly interested in the AVR X20 2200W. It's finally a good time to buy an AVR, right? It's not a bad time.
Well, yeah, I think well, maybe not literally right this second, but
soon.
certainly very soon. The ones he's asking about, the Denon X series, specifically the X1200 and the X2200, they are arriving in July. We don't have a exact date, but they said, yep, they're coming out in July, so that is very soon. And yeah, these do have all the features I would be concerned about if you're thinking, hey, I'm going to keep this receiver for the next 5 years or so. It has HDCP 2.2 copy protection. It has HDMI 2.0A, and it does support high dynamic range. So those are the major things. And both of those models actually support Dolby Atmos and DTS:X, although limited to a 7-speaker setup. So a 5.2.2 is where they max out. But even there, at least you can still do it and have that format show up on your front display if you really, really want it to. They're entirely capable of it. So yeah, I think these are a pretty safe purchase at this point. Let's hope that there's no MPEG-H or massive comeback of Oro 3D or something like that.
Unlikely.
Yeah, but yeah, these seem like safe bets. So, yeah, the USA prices, those have been announced. The 1200 is going to be $599, and the 2200 is going to be $799. But those are US dollar prices. I've noticed that Gibby's Electronics in Canada, they have these listed. They have them up for pre-order because they don't have them in stock yet. The prices in Canada are not so great. On the list prices, they're $799 for the 1200. Nice. And $999 for the 2200, so $200 more expensive. Although our currency right now has a horrible exchange rate, so that's the reason for that. But those are the official prices. I am quite certain we'll see those prices come down very rapidly once they actually release the Canadian prices, because they very often do. But yeah, that's the price points. That's when they're coming out, and I do think they're a pretty safe purchase.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. All right. Have you heard anything from Odyssey about whether or not they're going to come out with anything new, or I haven't heard any news from them in the last couple of years.
No,
ever since the Sub EQ has come out, they're like, we're good, we'll see ya.
Yeah, these X series models from Denon, they have Mult EQ XT.
Yeah.
So, which is, that's pretty good when you're talking about at least in the States, an $800 or a $600 receiver with Mult EQ XT. That's not bad. Yeah. So that's all right.
You're right. Better than poke the eye with a sharp stick. Quentin on Twitter just recently came across Golden Ear Technology speakers and want to know a bit more about them. Have we heard them? What do we think of them? What's their background? And given the choice between Golden Ear and RBH, what speaker will we choose? Well, Golden Ear, when they first came out, I looked into them quite a bit. I did a couple of preview articles on their stuff. They come from the makers of DefTech. So if you like DefTech and you like the way DefTech, they're sort of omnidirectional, point up for no apparent reason.
Well, Golden Ear doesn't do that.
They don't. They
don't do the bipole with tweeters and mid-ranges on the back of the speaker, which is something DefTech does.
Yes. But so, their heritage is from, they're certainly what I would consider to be a reputable brand. I mean, they're not coming out of nowhere. They're not, some garage, outfit that is fly by night that will take all your money and promise you the world and give you.
Oh, no. Yeah, one of their co-founders is Sandy Gross, who was a co-founder at Polk and a co-founder at DefTech. So he's sort of the connection there. And yeah, they're sold in retailers. They're not an internet direct brand. So
no, they're not.
Yeah, they're sold through dealers.
Then again, really, neither is RBH. So,
that's right.
So both of these are going to be someplace you have to go listen to them someplace. I have not heard them personally. Not that I'm aware of, not that I recall. I may have heard them in a CD at one time, but I barely count that as hearing things.
Right.
I mean,
it's such a odd setting.
when they put you, even if they get you into a room sort of thing, it's usually they're too loud or the music's stupid or, they're trying to impress you with something else. Oh, look at all the, it's on the turntable. I don't care. Whatever. Stop it. So he says, if given the choice between Golden Ear or RBH, which speaker would I choose, or would we choose? I can't honestly say because I've never heard Golden Ear, but I know the RBH is really good. I've never heard anything from RBH I didn't like. That's
Right.
for sure. Even the stuff that was cheap, I was like, well, as cheap goes, this is really good. Quentin already likes the RBH speakers, but they're a bit expensive for his budget, and that is true, which is why they have EMP tech. The Golden Ear prices are a bit more attractive, but he isn't sure about their sound without having heard them yet. Do we have any other suggestions that sound like RBH at lower prices? I mean, other than EMP, right? Is that what we're saying? Because EMP sounds just like RBH, just
Right.
cheaper. So,
Yeah.
so I mean, literally, that's not me, making a joke. RBH has a sound. It's a very flat.
Hmm.
It's got a very clean sound. It's non-colored. So, what I find with as you spend more money with RBH, you get more top and bottom end, basically. Or you might get more volume, but you
Yeah,
definitely
louder
get more.
output. Yeah.
You definitely get more sound. But if you think about it, okay, so you get really good sound on like the cheap speakers from like 10 hertz or 10 kilohertz down to like 35 or 45 or something like that. And
Yeah.
as you spend more money, that top end extends a little bit more and the bottom end extends a little bit more and it gets louder. I
And you do
mean,
tend to get like tighter control over the
yes,
transient response, like
for sure.
faster timing because they're
For sure.
using higher quality drivers with better materials, more expensive materials, and larger and more powerful magnets and that type of thing. So as you go up in the RBH line, you're sort of paying for timing and extension on either ends.
I wonder if he's not finding something between the EMP price and the RBH price, but there is a
Right.
fairly wide range of RBH offerings.
Yeah.
Uh, you don't have to spend a ton of money
Yeah,
to
you
go
don't
into
have to go for
RBH.
their reference signature series. It's not a necessity. Although they're nice speakers.
They are very nice. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie to you. They're nice.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the Golden Ear Supersats, and I've heard their Triton 2 towers. I think it was the Triton 2 towers. One of the towers, anyway, and it was going back a ways, so it was before the 5s and 7s even existed. So I'm pretty sure it was the 2s. Yeah, I've mentioned the Golden Ear Supersats several times because they are on-wall speakers that I was impressed with because I really do think that if you put them in a compromised placement, like if you put them on either side of an entertainment unit, or you put them inside a bookcase, or like places where people do put speakers, which we would say, please don't put them there if there's any way to avoid it, but people do it anyway. And I'm like, you do that to the Supersats, and they still sound pretty good, which is impressive.
Probably means
And
that they have very tight.
dispersion.
Yeah,
Yeah, they are. They are a little bit beamy thanks to their ribbon tweeter, their folded ribbon tweeter, and this goes for the Triton 2s as well, although less so for the big full range towers. But I would not call Golden Ear's sound completely neutral. I don't think that's what they're aiming for. They've never even said that that's what they're aiming for.
Yeah.
I do think they have a characteristic sound to them, and I think it's a pleasing characteristic sound.
There's
So I
nothing
don't
wrong
have
with that.
yeah, I don't have a big beef with that. No, I have no problem with a speaker company that says this is the sound we're going for. All of our speakers match this particular target curve or these particular set of measurements for the total sound power that they radiate out into the room. Like, this is what we're going for. We think it sounds really good. If you think it sounds really good, you'll like them. I'm like, that's fine because it's totally true, and that's a fine way to
Regardless of what they say,
differentiate.
every single speaker manufacturer, actually, I'm sorry, every single speaker designer within a manufacturer has preferences.
Yep.
And those preferences come across in their designs.
Yep.
So, like Bang & Olufsen will tell you flat out, we've got a curve. We
Yep.
won't tell you what it is, but we got one. And that curve is what we're going for, and that's our sound, and we like it, and we've done a lot of research that tells us that other people like it, and we're going to stick with it. RBH really kind of goes for a really super flat, very neutral sound. So if you like that, well, then you're going to like RBH. But
Yep.
if you like RBH, doesn't mean you won't like the Golden Ears, but you might not. I would definitely hear them and
Yeah.
not take anybody else's word.
Yeah, because I would not say that the Golden Ears and the RBHs are like cousins. I wouldn't say that they're
Mm.
like the same sound. I would say they're different sounds. They're both very pleasing sounds, so it is worth an audition. I mean, this is a case where it is worth an audition for you to discover what you like.
I don't necessarily know that I can come up with another speaker that I would say that is kind of comparable to RBH in
Well, I
that
would say
way.
like Revel.
See, I
Revel is
haven't heard
pretty
I haven't heard Rebel
darn
outside of a CDA,
right.
and they're trying to blow you away with their loud they can get, and
Right,
that's
yeah.
not really what I'm going for. I There was one speaker I thought that sounded pretty good, but now I can't remember the name of it, and they don't make it anymore anyway, so it's the same material.
Yeah, well,
But
since Quentin got in touch with me on Twitter, I mean, I threw out some suggestions because, I mean, if he's looking at Golden Ear and RBH, I'm assuming he's actually going to stores because they
Yeah.
are store brands. So I said, if you have stores that sell Revel, ones that sell Focal, ones that sell PSB, which you almost certainly have a store around you that sells PSB, and Kef. Like those are 4 ones that I would say at least, get some ears on with something that stores have because you're probably going to find dealers who carry those brands.
I can find Kef here in town, so yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that I would call Kef the most neutral sound in the world.
No, they're a different sound too. But
you might find something you like in that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just bring music that you're familiar with. Now, while he's saving up, he'd like to use a sound bar. I don't know why, but he would like to. Okay. What do we recommend? I recommend you get bookshelf speakers personally. I recommend you not use a
yeah,
sound
you could
bar.
get those Pioneer Andrew Jones bookshelf speakers for like $120, $130, sometimes even $99 a pair. So
I would do that
Yeah.
and not use a sound bar. Can we go? Can that be the recommendation, or do we have to give you a sound bar recommendation?
I'm still gonna give one.
You're
Even
gonna
though-
say Vizio. You always say Vizio.
Yeah,
You
I
haven't
do say
said anything
Vizio.
about Vizio.
I don't because, in my opinion, if you're gonna go for a sound bar, and I mean, he's saying this is a temporary
Yeah.
setup.
Yeah.
So like the thing he's concerned about is whatever he gets, he still wants it to be decent. He still wants to enjoy
Bookshelves.
what he's hearing.
Bookshelves. How hard is this? This is an easy answer. Bookshelves.
But then he's still got to. Well, I don't know. Maybe
Well,
already has a
I
receiver.
mean, what kind
Does
of
he have a
sound bar are
receiver?
you going to recommend that he doesn't need a receiver for it? He's going to have a receiver anyways.
Yeah, eventually, for certain. I
Bookshelves.
still like the Vizios. They're inexpensive, but they sound pretty good. They
I
sound
know
pretty
they
dark.
do. I know
Yeah.
they do.
And the thing is, like, until you get to spending over $1,000 for one of the Yamaha digital sound projectors or one of the
It is
super high end.
literally it's 6 of one, half dozen of another, as far as I'm concerned. Until you get to the Yamaha stuff, I've heard Polk,
Yeah.
I've heard Paradigm,
Yeah.
I've heard. I mean, and that Paradigm stuff has got a lot of bass too. I've heard. I'm like, really? That's not a subwoofer?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, it's not a subwoofer. I'm like, oh wow, that must be a lot of distortion. Anyways, it. You really, it's just. They all kind of sound about the same.
Yeah.
Boston Acoustic does some too, and those were decent. I mean, just whatever's on sale, go with that.
Yeah, I mean, to
That's
me, it doesn't make sense to go for a $1,000 plus sound bar that's going to get replaced.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if you're gonna get something, I'm assuming the whole reason he's doing this is because he's planning to get his dream AV receiver when he gets his dream speakers. So if you're not getting any of that and you just want something that is super simple that you could
I
easily
assume that
sell,
he already has a AV receiver of some sort, and he's going to be upgrading. And between
Could be.
now and then, he could use his receiver for his Andrew Jones speakers.
yeah, I
Bookshelves.
do not disagree.
Yes. So we're in agreement. Bookshelves. What Tom said. All right. So that was last week's questions. Got through those. That was pretty good. You guys could have at least finished all the questions from last week. That would have been nice. I guess if you're going to go for 2.5 hours or whatever it is. Jack is the proud
put a
owner of a
dent.
pair of Shure flagship SE846 in-ear monitors. He thinks they're terrific, but when he has used them with the Samsung Galaxy Note 4 smartphone, he found that sound dull, unclear, and lacking. It makes him feel as though he's not getting his money's worth from the Shure's in-ears, the 846s, SES 846s. And he knows they're capable of sounding much better. He'd first like to know what's causing this issue. We've said that DACs are a mature technology, but could it be that the DACs in his Note 4, does the phone even have, yes, it has DACs. The next question is, does the phone even have DACs? Yes, it does have DACs. It must have DACs.
Something is turning the
Something
digital
is doing
signal
it.
into analog.
Yes. You can't just software it. It doesn't just software it. There needs to be a DAC in
You,
there
you
someplace.
need an analog output, which means there must be something turning it from digital to analog, and a processor, no matter what software, is not going to do
Let
that.
me ask you a question here, Jackie boy. What program are you using to listen to stuff because
Eh,
that could make a big difference.
okay.
Okay, because I've got double something, double. I can't remember the name of the super program. Anyways, it irritated me because I went did all this research and I was like, oh yeah, this is a good one. It does Apple AirPlay and I can stream stuff and they can do this and do that, and it works. It really does. And I can,
Okay.
with I think I paid like $4 or $5 for it, and
Mhm.
then it stream like I don't have to connect it to my computer. I just open the program on my computer and it syncs up to the phone. It's really kind of cool that way. Great, except they have a proprietary, and I didn't figure this out till much, much later, compression codec that compresses everything down so that all the music has been compressed. And when I ask them how is it, what is it? They're like, oh, it's proprietary. I'm like, yeah, but what is it? What is it? What am I getting? Is it 128 kilobits? And like, yeah, it's proprietary. I'm like, I hate you. I hate you in your face. So, what program are you using, Jack? And is it getting compressed as it's coming to your phone? Because that could be what you're hearing. If you're saying that your sound quality is poor, I mean, I'm not saying that there's a ton of other reasons, but don't rule out that whatever program you're using to get the
Hmm.
music onto your phone isn't doing something. And even if you're using Google Music, whatever the little headphone icon is that they have these days, there may be some sort of setting in there that says, oh, we bring it over and we compress it before we bring it over.
Hmm.
So you want to check all that before you
Yeah.
worry
Yeah.
about
See,
buying new gear.
I don't know enough about Android at all to even
Well,
weigh in on that.
you can definitely see that when you're doing Apple products because
Mm-hmm.
there's a box to check whether or not to compress it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it is by default not compressed.
That's right. Yeah.
Uh, because I think I enabled it on my kid's 4 gig
Yeah. You
iPod
can.
shovel, which
It does have a
quickly
drop-down
fills up.
menu on the Apple one in iTunes. There's a drop-down menu so you can select what level of compression you want. The default, if you check the box, is 128 kilobit
Yeah,
AAC. So,
yeah.
yeah. I will say though that the SE846 in-ears, they have 4 little drivers in them, all packed into one little in-ear monitor, and they are not the super easiest in-ears to drive.
Hmm.
Not shocking there. So
No.
it's not going to be the DAC. I will say that it is not the digital analog converter. It could be the amplifier though, because
Yeah.
many smartphones do not have the most powerful little amplifier built into them. It's always just a little op amp device, and a lot of them do struggle to power more challenging headphones, which I would say that the SE846s fall into the more challenging category. So if it is a hardware issue whatsoever, I'm going to say it's the amplifier.
Oh, I would agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. So you can get standalone amplifiers that are portable,
Mm-hmm.
that you can take around with you. And I know you've got a couple here. The TIAC
Yeah.
HAP50 is one that we
Yeah.
talked about before in the past.
Yeah. That TIAC is sort of the one I've just come to be my go-to recommendation now. It goes for about $170, $180 depending on when you're buying it from. So it's not super cheap, but it's not ridiculously expensive like some portable headphone amplifiers are. And it is a DAC as well. So if you're worried that it's the DAC that's built into your phone, don't worry. You can use the USB output and plug it into this thing, send the signal out digitally, and have this device do all the digital analog conversion and amplify it for you.
Yeah, you really don't care about that first part. You care about
Nope.
that second part. You're really worried about the amplification.
That's right. But in any case, this will do it all. It does have a battery. The battery, it's a lithium battery that's in there and charges up and lasts about 8 or 9 hours, most people say. It does depend on your headphones a little bit, of course, if they
My
draw a
phone
lot more
doesn't
current.
last 8 or 9 hours.
Yeah.
So
So it's not. I can't say it's like the sleekest, slimmest device ever built. It is definitely thicker than your smartphone. But in all other dimensions, it's probably actually a little bit smaller than, especially like a Note 4. It's definitely smaller in length
Yeah.
and width. It's just thicker. But yeah, that TIAC will do what you need hardware wise as far as give you enough power to really drive those headphones. If you hook things up to this TIAC and you still are feeling that the sound is really lacking as compared to when you plug it into your home system or whatever, then it's almost certainly the software, because this is going to solve your hardware issue if there is one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
do some
He asked
research on
about
that
the
software though, for sure.
Yeah, he asked about the Dragonfly, which will work as well. It's just the Dragonfly does not supply its own power in any way, so it will be drawing power from your phone's battery.
Ah,
That's all you have to worry about there. So,
yeah.
but that
So
would
if you'd
work
like your
too.
phone to get extremely hot while you're listening to music,
Yeah,
that
and the Dragonfly, because it's drawing the power from your phone or from any USB port, it's not quite as powerful an amplifier as the TIAC, which is its own battery-powered
yeah.
amplifier. So, yeah, that's about that.
All right. Josh wants to know if we've ever used or heard of a product called the the BBE Sonic Maximizer. If so, where are our impressions? I had never heard of this thing.
Nor had I. I'm
Anyways, he
kind of
says
glad he brought it to my attention. It's
yeah,
kind
he
of a
says
neat
the
idea.
current models have been hugely improved over the years. Hugely improved, I suppose. I guess those are his words. Josh has been using them since the 80s, and he says he's always preferred the BBE sound to the non-BBE sound, and that without one of these units, there is just so much detail and clarity missing. So I skimmed this little crazy old article thingy about this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me, from what I can understand, what it seems to do is to maximize dynamic range.
Yes.
So the louder something gets, the more it boosts it.
Mm-hmm.
So if something is soft, it leaves it soft. But if something gets loud, it makes it even louder.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I have no
What
idea why you would want that to happen.
what's the correct term for that? It accentuates the dynamic range, I guess you could say.
I guess, yeah. I
Yeah.
guess it would certainly. Yeah, I just don't know why you
Well, I
would
mean,
want
I could see why this would seem to improve many modern recordings that have
Yeah,
like
but he's been using it since the 80s.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's what you call a dynamic equalizer because
right.
unlike a regular equalizer that just always boosts or cuts whatever given frequencies all the time, regardless of what the signal is doing, this one is dynamic in that it only amplifies when the original signal is louder. And, like Tom said, when the original signal is quieter, it doesn't touch it. So it leaves the quiet quiet and it makes the loud parts louder. So it is dynamically equalizing things, which is different from most other equalizers. That would be a perfectly valid reason to say why this doesn't sound like your traditional static equalizer, because it
For sure.
very likely doesn't. Yeah, so I mean that's an interesting idea. Like I was saying, for modern recordings where a lot of them have a grand total of 3 dB difference between the quietest
Yeah.
and loudest thing, that would be an enhancement, because at least it would make the parts that are a whole whopping 3 dB louder, it would actually accentuate that and give you some dynamic range.
Up to maybe 5.
Yeah, who knows?
Wow. Now we're talking. That's real dynamic range. That is.
But that would be something, what this will definitely do is accentuate transients, and that's probably why he's hearing this added detail and clarity, because it's the starts and stop. I mean, particularly the attacks of notes. So that very first hit on the drum, the very first clash on the cymbal, the very first pluck of a string, that is the transient sound, which is the loudest. It exists for a millisecond in time, but it is louder than all the rest of the sound, and this is accentuating that even further. So
Yes.
that would make all of those attacks of every single sound stand out more in the mix. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is adjustable. I mean, it's entirely variable. So, I mean, he was saying he prefers just using a little bit, not going nuts with the knob and cranking it all the way up. I mean, it kind of reminds me of the whole Darby
Yeah.
thing.
It does, right?
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
on this, whatever article we'll link up in the notes here. It says the Sonic Maximizer applications, adding depth and detail to a complete mix. I don't know what that means. Creating a slightly over bright master for cassette duplication. Okay, this was written apparently in the 80s. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, 1994 it says. All right, so a slightly over bright master for cassette duplication. That kind of makes sense. Making percussive sounds stand out in the mix, which is what Rob just said.
Yep.
Adding depth and intimacy to vocals. Again, it's just making those loud things louder.
Yeah.
Creating perspective in the mix by selectively treating sounds. That's what we've been talking about. And adding low-end punch to dance material.
Oh, because there are 2 knobs. One of them is this dynamically adjusting EQ, and the other one is basically a smiley face curve.
Oh, right, sure.
So, so the whole amplifying bass and amplifying the treble, that would be the second knob, which is pretty much a smiley face curve.
Well, Josh, I'm going to say that I am glad that you're very happy with this product and you've been using it for 35 years, I guess,
Hmm.
35 years here. So great. Congratulations, dude. I don't know that I would want it or want
I
something to
mean,
do this, but I
there
can
are.
see, you know what? I bet there's, you know what? I bet a lot of these programs that are on like Yamaha receivers, Denon
Yeah.
receivers, these Sonic or MP3 enhancers, I bet they're based on something like this.
Yeah, the what do they call it? Like retrieval,
Yeah,
right? Sometimes they
retrievals.
call it like retrieve
Yeah,
compression retrieval
yeah.
programs and things like that.
Decompressor. They can't call it that because that would
Yeah,
be a
I mean
complete
there are
overall.
things that they just call like sweeteners,
Yeah,
right? In mixing and that, which you know, again, it's I mean sweeteners are usually adding harmonics. That's usually what they're doing. Is adding harmonics to the original fundamental to give you some overtones that don't exist in the original recording, things like that. So there are lots of ways that the signals have been manipulated all throughout recording history, and this could be used in a recording setting or it could be used in a playback setting. It could be done either way.
I
So
imagine in a recording setting this has a lot of, like it was saying, for making duplicates and stuff like that. But I imagine you would use stuff like this, and I imagine the sound, the mixers are either using something like this or doing similar things but manually.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, the I don't know, purist person would say, okay, you are altering the final recording. So therefore you are not hearing a completely accurate sound to, what the masterers wanted. But I'm like, again, we come back to the thing of there are no strict standards for audio. And if you use this somewhat judiciously and it is giving you back some dynamic range from these horribly dynamically compressed recordings that we have today, and you're saying, like, hey, I like it better with some added dynamics, I'm like, I'm fine with that. I got no problem with that.
as
So,
long as you admit what's going on, and,
yeah,
then I'm fine with it. Yeah.
yeah,
So, all right,
cool.
cool. So if you guys, if some that sounds interesting to you, look it up and
Yeah.
maybe you guys try it out. It's not hugely expensive. I don't
No, no, they're
remember, like
reasonable.
$100 or something like
They all look like stereo devices, so you'd need a pile of them if you wanted to do it to your surround sound.
that.
And you'd need separates, because obviously you'd have to feed the signal out and then go through this device and then go into your amplifiers. But for
Yeah,
a
and
stereo
they actually
setup,
look like they're professional units. A lot of them they're described as
yeah,
one
rack mounted.
one rack, one unit high or 2 unit high or something like that.
They do have a desktop one, though, that is not rack
There
mounted
you go.
and just takes regular RCA plugs. So that would totally work with your AV receiver that has pre-outs.
There you go. Kyle is looking for some feedback on his current theater plans. He has wired his room for 7.2.4 with all the speakers being in-wall slash in-ceiling model. So he's going in-wall all the way around. Right now, he is strongly considering the Klipsch 6502 THX Select 2 speakers for his front three, which will be placed behind an acoustically transparent screen at $500 a pop. They are quite a bit more expensive than his initial plans, but he is already a fan of Klipsch and he likes their high efficiency. That said, he didn't tell us how big this thing is. All right. That said, do we have an alternate that we would strongly suggest over the Klipsch? I have a hard time recommending it when somebody tells me I'm a fan of this. Tell me what else I should buy. I don't want to tell you what else you should buy because you're not going to like it because you like the clip. If you like them and you think $500 a piece is a reasonable price to spend on them, then I think that that's exactly what you should get. Honestly,
Yeah, if you enjoy high efficiency, which I don't blame anybody who enjoys a high efficiency speaker, because then you don't have to have gigantic amps and you're putting it behind a screen and I don't know how far away he's sitting. So there's plenty of reasons for high efficiency to be a
yes, I
very
wish he had given
positive
us the
thing.
size of his theater because
Yeah, I'm
that
sure he did at
makes a
some point,
difference.
because we
I mean,
talked about
it's
his
like
plans
if you
before.
sit
So
like 8 feet away, then I'm like, I don't really think you necessarily need high efficiency. I mean, unless you're literally using a clock radio, or a
yeah.
AAA battery.
But yeah, when you know the sound and you like the sound, then I have no reason to like say you must not buy these speakers because they are not bad speakers. So go for it if they're the ones you like. That said, if you want to consider an alternative, HSU, they do have their horn-loaded in-wall speakers. They are not the dual woofer design of the Klipsch. The Klipsch uses two 5.25-inch drivers. The HSU speakers use a single 6.5-inch driver. They have about the same efficiency. They have about the same power handling, about the same output capabilities. So they're on paper anyway. They don't look tremendously different. And the HSUs come in at $300 a pair. So they're definitely less expensive. They still give you that horn loading. They still give you the high efficiency.
You can go all the way around with them.
Yeah, you could. Yeah. So, I mean, I'll just throw it out there as a possible alternative, but I'm still not going to be angry in the least if you're like, yeah, I still like the Klipsch.
Okay, with his plans to spend a lot more on his front three speakers, decided to skimp on the surround back speakers. Well, then you can get those HSU ones. There you go. He's looking for.
Well,
for
I don't even then.
In-wall speakers that came with a built-in backer box. He's concerned about bothering his kids in the adjoining room, so he doesn't want open-backed in-wall speakers.
Yeah.
I guess technically the ones with the backer boxes are a little bit more soundproofed, but they're still mechanically attached to the wall. That's still going through, dude. Whether you like
it is, yeah, it is. I mean, the thing is, a lot. I don't even know if I could say the majority, but a lot of in-wall speaker options from many brands. You can buy separate backer boxes. They just sell them separately. Now, of course, that increases your overall price, but it's not as though you can't get backer boxes or even just build your own to the specifications that they often list on the website.
I think it was a couple weeks ago you were talking about, kind of just putting some deadening back there or build your own.
Yeah, like, Kef and Paradigm are two examples. They both sell backer boxes, but they also have the dimensions listed right on their website, so you could just build your own. So, an open back in-wall speaker, which is the vast majority of in-wall speakers are open back. I mean, I do recommend having a backer box. It does aid, at least you don't have the entire wall cavity acting as a big resonator, basically, for
but that's
the
for
back
a completely
wave.
different reason, though, than what he's talking about.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I wouldn't entirely limit myself to speakers that are built with a back. But on the other hand, if you're like, I just want something that's super easy to buy and I want to cut one hole in my wall and put the speakers in and be done with it, if that's like, the type of person that you are, then I got no problem being like, yeah, I just want to look at that speakers that already have a back. He did already know about Axiom Audio, because I have mentioned Axiom Audio in the past, as they build all of their in-wall and in-ceiling speakers with backs already on them, but he discovered the same thing that we've been saying, which is their prices are a little bit high now for what they're selling, so he opted for something else.
So he's looking at these Pile Home. I've never heard of them. Pile Home in-wall in-ceiling 6.5-inch enclosed speaker, two-way flush mount. It's got its own backer box thing, with little tabs and all that, and they're $82 a pair.
Yeah, I think he said he even found them for like $70 a pair elsewhere. So yeah, I mean, that's where I was saying, even if he went for the HSU speakers up front, first of all, the HSU speakers do not have backer boxes. You'd have to make your own or buy them from HSU.
But after doing 5 of them, you'd be really good at it. That way, you could be like an expert. I do not agree with this plan. He was looking at these speakers as being his surround speakers,
right?
And the reason is this: these speakers. Let me see if I can see some. I'm looking for the.
I haven't heard these Pile Audio speakers, so I have no idea how they sound. But I mean, you are going to be sticking them in your wall and cutting holes to do so, and I don't know if the next, because he's saying these are temporary. He's saying at some point in the future he wants to replace them with better speakers. But I don't know
the
that
problem
those...
is they don't have the efficiency rating on here that I can see. And this is where you're going to run into problems, okay? And I've dealt with this with Klipsch before. Somebody buys Klipsch, for their fronts, and then they try to get something else for their surrounds. And I'm not saying that that's not possible, okay? That's perfectly possible. But then your Klipsch are so efficient that your receiver has a hard time matching the volume levels of the two speakers. Because your receiver, your Klipsch will be at -12, and your speakers in the back will be at +12, and they still won't match. So you can run into issues like that depending on your setup. We don't know the size of your room. So that was one thing that I talked to with a custom installer who said that that was one of the problems that he's always had with dealing with customers who buy their own speakers is not that your speakers all have to match, but you have to think about what you're doing. And having speakers with wildly different efficiencies can really run you into problems as far as calibration and setting up. And that's not even getting into the timbre matching, which I will guarantee you, whatever these are going to sound anything like those clips. Guaranteed. Not even close. Now, do they have to? I've often said they don't because they're surround speakers. But they don't, and then they should at least be in the ballpark. They should be
Right.
playing the same ball game. These guys right here, I don't know that they would even. I wonder if how long you would leave them in the wall before you would just tear them out out of frustration. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, in my own experience, which is limited when it comes to in-ceiling and in-wall speakers, and I have not had them in my own home. I'm going by things I've been able to hear in demos and things like that. So this is not the greatest advice. I'll make that disclaimer right away. But I have been primarily more impressed with the KEF offerings than a lot of others. I think that their design of driver works for an in-ceiling or an in-wall speaker. I think it works well. And they do offer separate backer boxes. Like I say, you could build your own. So I like KEF as a choice overall, and they do have offerings that should not break the bank. Another one that definitely comes up all the time is Triad. Mainly because Triad offers speakers that have integrated backer boxes already built on. In particular, they're in-ceiling speakers. They also have, fully enclosed in-ceiling round speakers ready to go that you just pop up into your ceiling, and they have, a sealed design on them. So those are often recommended for folks who are looking for a self-contained sealed speaker. And yeah, I do have to agree. I mean, the plan of just getting 7 speakers whatever way you can, going as cheap as you possibly can. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have bad results, but when they're largely mismatched, then it is a displeasing result, and you kind of end up wishing that you'd either just gone with 3.
Yeah.
Just gone with 3 and lived with that for a while, which is fine. You can live with 3 speakers up front for a while. It's not going to kill you.
Or you go with 2 up front for the price you're going to spend on the center
Yeah.
channel. You could buy the HSU speakers for your surrounds, and you'll have something that at least, like I said, is all playing the same game.
Yeah.
And you will probably be fine with that. I mean, if you think about it, he's got 7. He's thinking of seven speakers, right? 7.2.4. So I mean, I don't know. If you really like Klipsch, I think you just stick with Klipsch.
That would be a fine idea.
Yeah, and if there's some reason why, tell us how big your room is, dude. Because if
You probably did. I'm so sorry.
I know it's all right, but maybe he did. And if he did, even if he didn't, take a look at these speakers. And I know high efficiency, blah blah blah, whatever. But with most speakers, you're not using most of that efficiency anyways. Not even close. I mean, you'll be pumping a quarter of a watt into them 90% of the time. You can maybe bump down, and save some money, and you would, you never even get close to their performance, getting to their performance limits in most rooms. So think about that, I guess. Yeah. All right. He has not planned on installing any in-ceiling speakers right away. He's waiting for a good 7.2.4 capable AV receiver to come down to a reasonable price. But in the meantime, he needs more HDMI inputs. Would it be a good idea to get a mono-price HDMI switch? And how well do they work with a Harmony remote? I have not personally used, I don't think I've used mono-price, but I've used Oppo's HDMI switch. And a lot of times the HDMI switches have kind of a priority
auto sensing, yeah.
The auto sensing thing. So they don't really need to work with the Harmony remote. It will just sort of work by itself. And what that does is, input 1 has the highest priority, and 2 the second highest all the way down. Now, you run into problems when you get some inputs or outputs from devices like cable boxes are infamous for this, where they're just sort of kind of always on.
Yup.
So you end up having to put them at the last input. And if you have 2 of them, well, then you're kind of hosed, which is kind of an issue. But then you have to manually switch them.
Right.
But a lot of those are IR anyways. And I'm sure you could find an IR controlled monoprice switch as well, and that should work just fine.
Yeah, first on the topic of the 7.2.4 capable AV receivers, again, I'm going to say now that they are announced, it is certainly worth waiting for the ones to be released that have the copy protection, that have the high dynamic range, that have DTS-X. So actually, I think one of your best choices, one of your best options is probably going to be actually the Marantz. Their SR7010, their 7010, which is replacing the 7009 that's going out. That actually should be coming in at under $2,000. So that's going to be one of the least expensive options for a full 7.2.4 capable AV receivers. So just keep that one in mind, and once it drops to a price that you can afford, that'll be a good choice, I think. Yamaha's flagship is going to be another option. Was it 3040 now? I think it was 3040, 3050. 3050? I can't remember. It was only a week ago. Anyway, yeah, that might be a good choice too. But yeah, they're still expensive now and actually not even available on the market just yet. So he's right to wait for a little while. I've definitely used HDMI switches from Monoprice, although Monoprice isn't necessarily always like making it themselves. So it's just their name plastered on it.
Yeah,
so
it's a whole bunch of Chinese stuff. And
yeah,
I got no problems with that. I got no problems with that. But you just got to know what you're getting yourself into. With Monoprice, you're like, it is cheap.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just cheap.
From specific model to model.
Yeah.
I can't necessarily say. But however, they always put a picture of their remote on there. Just look for one that has dedicated buttons for each input, because then even if it does the auto switching, even if it does the prioritized switching thing, you can just override it by directly hitting the button for the input that you want, and those are always programmable into your Harmony. Even if it's somehow not in Harmony's database, you can just learn it into the remote, and then you have a direct button for whatever input you want. One trick I will say is if you run into the problem of this source turns on, my HDMI switch automatically goes over to whatever input and I didn't want it to, and my Harmony remote sent out the commands too quickly, so it didn't catch that's it. Like, it tried to, but then the auto sensing thing came in after the code was sent. The Harmony remotes, you can always set a delay.
Yeah.
Or this has been an issue with some of the newer Harmony models, which bothers me, which is that before you could always rearrange the order of all the commands. Now, when you hit an activity, the first set of commands for turning things on and setting it to the input, you can't rearrange them anymore. They don't let you rearrange the order anymore. So what I've discovered is you just have to do the silly workaround of you tell it to send the command again, and then you can put a delay on that command.
Yeah.
Right, so you can put it at the end of the sequence that Harmony won't let you change anymore, which is frustrating. But you can put it at the end with a delay, and then you will always catch that command. So if it comes to it, that's the workaround for Harmony.
Yeah, and honestly, I've so rarely had a problem with my remote, and I actually went in there and kind of played around with those things one time, and it's a little bit more adjustable than I think you're saying. I think they maybe have made some changes. I seem to remember being able to move things around. I might be wrong.
No, that's the thing. Before you could, and now you can't.
Oh, maybe.
Which is a frustrating way of going backwards in the abilities. I even ran into one situation where it only, like, it wouldn't let me select an input button as a direct command. Like, I had to learn it in as a second name. Like, I had to name it something else instead of it being like input HDMI 1, which is the automatic name thing. It wouldn't let me use that during the activity, so I had to like learn the same command and give it a different name and then put that in. Like, there are ways to work around things in Harmony. That's what I was saying about their software, is like sometimes it is very frustrating, and I blame no one when they say, I have been using this thing for like 2 hours and I can't get it to do what I want. I'm like, there is almost always a way, but it is sometimes a head scratcher. So yeah.
Engineers. All right, Barney, during CU week and the Value Electronics flat panel shootout, Barney noticed a comment that all of the displays were calibrated for 35-foot Lambert peak light output. Barney was under the impression that 30-foot Lamberts, approximately 100 nits, is the standard. Why would they calibrate to 35?
Ambient lighting.
I was going to say, that's the only thing I can think of as to why they would do that. Like, when I first read this question, I missed the fact that it was a shootout, flat panel shootout. And I thought it was like, oh, well, they're in the store. That's why they did it. There's lights on. But then when I read it just now, I was like, oh yeah. So if there's a lot of light in the room, they gotta kind of overcome that, and that they calibrate a little hot because of that. Makes sense.
Yeah. The 30-foot Lambert's standard, it is the standard. 100 nits is the standard in a video mastering studio, which is very dark.
Yeah.
It's not quite pitch black, but it is darn close to it. And so that is the standard. Barney's got that right. But once you introduce some ambient light into the room, if you leave it at 30-foot Lambert's peak brightness, it tends to look a little bit dull. And all of these displays are capable of being way brighter than 100 nits. I mean, like the Samsung SUHD was one of the options, and it's capable of high dynamic range. It can get like 600 or 800 nits. So it is capable of being way brighter. So they in fact were tamping all of these displays down. I do remember from some previous shootouts, there were cases where one of the displays was not capable of going down to 30-foot Lamberts. Like, no matter what you did, it was always brighter, so they brought all the other displays up to, like, the minimum level of that one display so that it wouldn't always be brighter than the others, giving it an unfair advantage for people who aren't educated about, how a display should look. Because people will almost always choose the brighter display. They'll say, that one looks better, because it's
Brighter,
brighter.
louder, more bass.
Yep.
That's pretty much what people are listening for. Brighter, louder, more bass.
So I don't recall any. I read through some of the threads about this shootout, which was only 4 flat panels, and I don't recall them mentioning anything like that this year. But yeah, anyway, it's the ambient light. That's why they did it. Made it a little brighter.
All right, Jay wanted to share a list of movie and home theater podcasts that was put together over High Def Digest. They start the thing off talking about how they're the best place for all your information, but they don't have a podcast yet, so they recommended some other. They I guess they asked their authors or people, whatever.
Yeah, they're writers. Yeah,
they're writers to list one, and we were on the list.
Yay!
Yes.
Which I'm thankful for, but I'm kind of surprised. I'm always surprised.
I'm not surprised.
Sure.
It's been around for a while, and we were
That's
listed
true.
after Scott Wilkinson, but before the HT guys.
And it wasn't
Not that I'm
alphabetical.
keeping score.
It wasn't alphabetical because AV comes before HT.
That is
so.
true. But it doesn't come before whatever the Scott Wilkinson one was. So was not alphabetical.
Hey, I've recommended Home Theater Geeks a bunch of times too.
Yeah.
If we get to
recommend
Gary's
HT guys
question
as well. So
if we get to Gary's question, oh man, that CE week episode, that was some cringe-worthy listening.
I did
not because of Scott, but just because,
no, I don't. I'm gonna have to watch that now because or listen to it or whatever it is because
Ooh.
yeah.
Shudders up my spine.
Yes, he got very angry. We're gonna talk about that. I don't know if we'll get to it tonight. By the way, I have the AOC like extra wide, like 21:9 thing, like monitor that I've never been able to use the whole thing because my old computer was so old. The video, they didn't have the drivers wouldn't work for it, so I can only get 16:9, I think, out of it. The black bars on the side. Now I get the whole monitor.
Ooh,
oh my god, my wife's like, "This is so nice. This is you can have 2 full 4x3 things open side by side," and she's like, "I love it. I love it. It's great for doing her finances, and that's all she wants to use it for, anyways." And she bricked her phone the other day, so now it's just what she's doing right now is trying to unbrick her phone because she bricked it this morning. Technology. Tim has come a long way in updating his 90s home theater in his basement. The room is finished, the 70-inch TV is hung, and his Paradigm in-wall and in-ceiling speakers are installed, and his SVS PB1000 subwoofer, quote, just rocks, unquote.
Yeah, he's happy.
Yeah, he's still using his old AV receiver, though, because somebody, he can't imagine who that was, so that was a better idea to wait. This is still true.
It might have been me.
It might have been us. His old Marantz SR80, 880 Mark II, I didn't know they had a Mark II, doesn't have any HDMI inputs and decodes standard Dolby Digital and DTS only. Boy, you are suffering. Can you imagine how great it's going to be when you get your new one? For the time being, Tim has been using a monoprice MD415 ARC HDMI switch. So maybe we should ask Tim if the monoprice switches are any good. Which has an optical audio output according to the manual. His monoprice HDMI switch is supposed to be able to take the HDMI audio and output it via that optical connection. He has it set to mode 2, but he'd like us to double check for him that he's using the correct setting. And you guess who didn't do that?
Yeah, I read through the manual, and that looks like a manual that was translated from another language.
by Babelfish.
It's a little better than that, but there is some language in there that I go, I need to parse that syntax to figure out what the heck they're saying. Mode 2 does appear to be the correct setting. That's the one that
What does
says
mode 2, mode 1 do?
well, mode 1 I think has more to do with ARC, the audio return channel.
Oh,
Because it talks about if you put it in mode 1, it's going to take whatever your TV is outputting and leave it alone. And I'm like, okay. I don't quite understand what that, but mode 2 anyway, the description is use this if you're using a home theater receiver that only understands Dolby Digital, DTS, or PCM audio. And I'm like, well, that sounds like the exact case that he has.
all right.
So I do believe mode 2 is the correct.
This is my question for you, Tim. Are you hearing sound?
Yeah.
If you
Are you
are
getting-
hearing sound,
is
then
Dolby
you are
Digital-
using the right.
Is Dolby Digital showing up on your front panel? Because that if Dolby Digital doesn't show up on your front panel, like that is the most basic of surround sound. So as long as that shows up, you're okay.
Yeah, it's so easy to overthink these things.
Yeah.
You know, it is sometimes so easy to overthink these things. It just, yeah. So if you got sound and things are showing up, then you're okay. Anyways, he has the DirecTV box set to output Dolby Digital and his PS3 to set bitstream, but the PS3 offers options to set the output to Dolby Digital, DTS, or PCM.
Right.
Could we explain these settings and what should he be using?
Right. So there's
We
a
have
couple.
talked about this a couple times before.
Yeah, and there's a couple of different things when it comes to the PS3 because one of them is dealing with video game audio,
Yeah.
and one of them is dealing with video.
I just want to say, from my
audio.
personal experience
from
with the
discs.
PS3 menu system, I'd like to slap the crap out of the person that put that thing together.
But it won
There's
an
like
Emmy, Tom.
4 different people, 4 different places where you have to like adjust your audio to make it do what you want it
But
to do.
the crossbar media menu won an Emmy for its design.
Clearly, no one used it.
No, clearly no one used anything else because it is Emmy voters.
You know that? Maybe they just never went into the settings at all. They're like, "Hey, you put in the disc and it plays it automatically. That's magic." Or it's just like every other thing ever. Yeah. So anyways,
Yeah,
go ahead.
the on the game setting side, because when you go to the audio output options that aren't talking about discs, because there's a separate audio menu for discs for Blu-rays and DVDs. When you're going to the game one, it does give you these options of, do you want everything to come out Dolby Digital? Do you want everything to come out DTS? Or do you want everything to come out PCM? Because the game audio, it's all PCM inside the game, but the console actually then encodes it into whatever format you want and sends it out the HDMI output. So that's all it's asking you. Do you want the console to take the game's audio and encode it as Dolby Digital so that your AV receiver can then decode it, encode it as DTS, or encode it as PCM? In your case, you could choose either Dolby Digital or DTS. It's not going to make a tremendous difference because your AV receiver can decode both of them. But your AV receiver does not understand 5.1 PCM. It only understands 2.0 PCM. At a maximum, it understands 2.0. So on the game audio, choose Dolby Digital or DTS. It doesn't
DTS.
matter. Yeah, he could.
DTS.
Higher bit rate because it's less efficient.
DTS is because it's more bass.
Sure. All right. On the video output side, though, you're correct just leaving it on bitstream. Now, when you do that, it should, if you select HDMI audio out and bitstream, it should actually give you a menu with a bunch of check boxes that you can select or deselect, because the PS3 is capable of outputting Dolby True HD and DTS HD master audio as bitstreams, and you do not want that because your receiver does not understand those formats.
Usually it will go and try to identify what your receiver can and can't accept.
It should.
It will
But-
uncheck boxes for you.
Well, if you were connecting it via HDMI, and he's not, because he
Yes,
doesn't have any HDMI inputs on his AV receiver. So, yeah, there's 2 ways you could do this. One, there's nothing wrong with leaving it as HDMI audio output on your PS3 and sending it through your monoprice box and letting the monoprice box turn that audio into a SPDIF signal that goes out the optical connection. Wow, that sounded really technical and confusing, but that's exactly what's going. That's fine. Just make sure that when you get to that sub-menu in the checkboxes, Dolby Digital, DTS, and 2-channel PCM those are the options you want to have mark boxes beside. You don't want AAC, and you don't want Dolby True HD, and you don't want DTS HD Master Audio, because those formats your receiver doesn't
A lot of
understand.
times it gives you different like bit rates too, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, which I don't know. If you want to just leave it at 48 kilohertz as the maximum, anything above 48 kilohertz, don't put a check mark beside, and you will be fine.
Yeah,
I guarantee you, you will be fine with that.
I don't guarantee you. He guarantees you.
I
don't
do.
know. Start clicking boxes, see if you can make him wrong. Anyways, lastly, he gets a pop when he skips commercials or the audio format changes to PS3. He tried connecting his devices directly to his Marantz without the HDMI switch, and he still got the same audio pops. Is there anything you could do to fix this, or is it just a problem with the Marantz? I'm guessing it's a problem with the Marantz, to be honest with you, because I have never experienced that, and I've connected in multiple ways. I've connected via optical, and I have connected via HDMI, and I've with my PS3, and I've never gotten a pop of any kind.
Yeah, that's one of those. This has been an issue in some AV receivers, which is that as soon as the audio stream is interrupted, it goes looking for the signal again, rather than just staying locked on whatever it was until it has a reason to change. Some AV receivers were designed that as soon as the audio stream, is gone for even a split second, it goes searching for it again, and then when it finds it, it starts up again, and that creates your little audio pop. So, yeah, that kind of is just a problem inside of your Marantz. I mean, I don't even want to mention. It's not even. Should I? You can lock it to a format. You can go into the menu and lock it to I only understand DTS or I only understand PCM, and then you have to make bloody well sure that that's what you're outputting.
The only thing that's outputting is DTS or PCM.
Yeah. Which your cable box can't do, so this is pointless. That's why I didn't even want to mention it. So there isn't really a fix unless you just want to set everything to 2-channel PCM output and not have surround sound. Like, that's the only...
Well, then you could use your receiver to bust it out Neo X or Dolby Digital.
Dolby Pro. I think it's just regular Pro Logic.
I would say it's probably just Pro Logic.
I don't even think it's Pro Logic 2. So until you get your new AV receiver, which, by the way, very soon you can buy one.
My birthday's in October, and that's about when you're going to be getting your new receiver. Yeah. So think of it as a birthday to yourself for me.
Yeah. But so you can kind of suffer through the audio pops.
You've been suffering this long.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just more motivation for every time it pops, you have to put a quarter in the cup.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, you'll have that new he's gonna have like a AVR X6200, like the one that I want. That's what's gonna happen. Quarter for every pop.
All right, Mike, bought the RHA MA 750s in-ear monitors, which we talked about in this podcast a while back because he wanted more bass, and he's loving them, enjoying their strong bass. He also bought a Sound Blaster portable headphone amplifier, which he said makes a noticeable difference versus his phone's output. Compared to his phone's output. He's been trying the Power Amp music player app for Android and thinks it has a great feature, set with tone controls, EQ, limiters, etc. But with his new in-ear monitors, he's been using a flat EQ, whereas he always wanted a bass boost before. His new purchase have led to a few questions, though. A, what does the loudness setting do? He thinks things sound better with it on, but what is it actually doing to the signal? I'm going to let you do this one because I went to go read this, and I literally ran out of time to do it. This is as far down the questions I got when I was...
Okay, one way to think of the loudness control, which has been around for quite a while in a lot of programs, it's almost like the precursor to Odyssey Dynamic EQ. Odyssey Dynamic EQ does this a lot better, but loudness kind of tried to do the same thing, which was, we know that human hearing is not linear. When we turn down the volume, we lose the ability to hear deep bass and high treble. We're pretty darn good at hearing mid-range sounds, but it's only once we get up to like 75 to 85 dB where everything played at that level sounds about equally as loud, from the lowest lows to the highest highs that we're able to hear. So the loudness control is basically a smiley face curve. If it's done correctly, it should actually change depending on the volume setting. So if the volume setting is low, it should apply a larger smiley face, boosting the bass and the treble even more. and then that should gradually flatten out as you turn up the volume. But not all loudness controls do that. If this
Most of
is
the loudness controls I've experienced is just it sounds pretty uniform.
it's just a smiley face curve
It's
that's
just a smiley
uniformly
face, yeah.
applied. Yeah, but yeah,
But I
that's what it
remember
is.
loudness controls way back when we had cassettes, and did they have it on 8-track? I feel like they had it on 8-track.
They
too.
might have, yeah.
Because I mean, I do remember putting an 8-track into a car stereo. I am that old, so there is that. So he also asked what the bass and treble controls actually do, and if we could see the response in the graph, what would it look like? Isn't that just the one half of the smiley face for each one of those?
Well, not quite, because it can also act as a cut. The loudness never acts as a cut; it only ever acts as a boost.
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah, so your bass and treble can cut or boost individually, and it depends on the program or the hardware that's got it, because they can select whatever frequency they want as the starting point or as the the primary part of the curve where it's applying the most. But usually it's around 500 hertz for the bass and around somewhere 2 to 4 kilohertz for the treble. That tends to be where they sort of apply the most, because it's like the consonant sounds on the treble, which are in the 4 kilohertz range, and it's the like fullness of the bass. Like when people talk about warm sounding bass, that's in the 500 hertz range. So that's sort of the most typical that you'll see. So if you looked at the curves, it would be different from program to program or hardware to hardware, but it's pretty much just applying a curve. And as you turn the control up or down, it is making the curve steeper or shallower to apply more and more boost as it gets lower, or more and more cut as you keep turning the knob.
Yeah, who wants to know if we have any recommendations for $100 or less portable headphone amp/DACs units that include adjustable bass controls? He's not currently worried about the noise floor, apparently, until he has a problem with it, and then he will be. I already recommended this, didn't I?
Yes, you did, and I put it in there again.
So the last time we talked about the fact that I thought that you should just get flat headphones and then buy the Digizoid ZO2, not a subwoofer headphone thingy. And basically what that is it's really, they don't call it an amp. They don't call it that because it's not technically an amp. What it does is it has a battery, a lithium-ion battery, and you charge that, and it lasts for a good long while. It's quite small, and then it just has a button on the top that boosts the bass, and it shows you the curve, and it's basically that smiley face. It just just a little. It's just a smirk. It's just the one side. So it boosts it up, and it has a tremendous, like a ridiculous amount of boost. Like you could not it's impossible for you to want more bass boost than this. It's impossible.
I don't know. He seems to like his bass.
I understand that, but literally, the only way that you can say that it's not boosting the bass enough is that there's no bass to boost. In which case, your problem is with the recording and not with this thing.
Or your earphones have just reached their limits of how loud they can
that
play.
Could be it.
That can also happen.
But the output is very hot, meaning that the headphone output. So you plug your headphone amp output into this thing. And then you plug your headphones into it as well. So it goes into it from your phone and then out, through it with the bass boost, and then the output on that is louder than the input on your, the output.
So it added a bunch of gain.
It does add some gain. They don't call it an amp though. Don't call it an amp, because that's not what it is. Because I called it the amp and they got mad at me, and it's not an amp, but it is very hot. So, and I would think you would love the heck out of that, dude. Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be exactly what he's looking for. Yeah, he actually mentioned himself the units from FiO, which I mean he obviously knew I was going to mention that the FiO ones do have a noise floor. So he's like, I don't care about the noise floor if they do what I want. So yeah, if you're okay with it having a little bit of a noise floor, then I don't have any problem at all with the FiO units. I'll mention just one other, JDS Labs. By no means are they the only people selling these, but there is a little almost like do-it-yourself project called the CMOI, which often comes in an Altoids tin, which is exactly the way that JDS Labs sells it. They take Altoids tins and put all the components in there, and
everybody that works there has the freshest breath.
Oh, they sell tinless packs of Altoids. To get rid of all the Altoids they're taking out of the tins that they're using as cases for the Sea Boys.
Okay.
It's like Elaine. with her.
certainly they. Okay, whatever. That's
It's Elaine with her muffin stumps. That's exactly what it is. But anyway, yeah, the Seymour with the bass boost, that might be what you're looking for. So check out JDS Labs. They got a bunch of products over there.
you get the Digitaloid thing, dude. You're gonna love it. He's been happy with the free trial of the Power Amp music player. Double Twist was the one I was trying to remember from before.
Ah, okay.
That was my player, and it does work well, but it is it applies some sort of compression. So,
Okay.
do we know of any other apps that are better? He doesn't want to pay twice. He specifically love an app that you could have different EQ settings for different songs, or at least easy memory slots for EQ presets. Yeah. Okay. There's something called Xeno. I think it's called Xeno app. Xeno amp. And last time I played with this thing, it has got the weirdest freaking interface. It is so bizarre. It's kind of intuitive, but you have to watch a video before you can intuit any of it. But once you get it, it sort of makes sense. But it does not get music onto your phone. After the music is on your phone, it is an interface for playing the music, and it's free. It's 100% free. At least it was last time I tried it. And that player has EQs, an EQ built in, has a bunch of other stuff. I don't know that it had EQ presets. It didn't. It was still like it may have been an alpha when I was playing with it last. I kind of got tired of it because it kept crashing on me. But that was at least 2 years ago, so it might cost money by now. But that one right there had a lot of functionality, and it was free. So if you can get your music onto your phone without compression, which you may not care about anyways, because all depending on what your music is, that would be one I would look at for sure. But there's tons of all you have to I do it all the time. Best music player for my phone. And there's going to be a list. You're going to find 20 lists that have.
Yeah, I mean, I just went to Tom's guide for this. They have 12 recommended Android music players. Like I say, I don't have any personal experience, so I can't steer you one way or other. However, that Power Amp music player is the first one on their list. It is their highest recommendation. So, yeah.
I'm actually looking to upgrade because I paid for that Double Twist, but I paid for it years ago, and I just factory reset my phone because I was having problems with it. It's a lot better now. It was very, very slow. It's now zippier and less cluttered. So I'm thinking of changing my music app too. So tell me which one you get, dude. And if you end up with Power Amp and you really like it, let me know because I might be.
Yeah, the memory slots for the EQs, because he likes to be able to manually adjust the EQ. But then if you're doing that song by song, then you're manually adjusting the EQ every time. So I don't know offhand any that does. Apparently, the Power Amp music player does not. So that was sort of the one feature he was looking for. But
I don't remember if there was an EQ involved, but didn't the Alpine headphones? They had an app where basically you could choose. You could it sorted your music by your mood, like if you wanted a lot of bass or something like that. So it would make custom playlists for you. Now it wasn't the EQ thing going on. The Xeno amp one that I had, it was a very nice little interface for adjusting the EQ. It was just sliders, not like sliders, but you could draw on it, and it would I want this up, I want that up, I want that down, sort of thing. And it was a very neat little EQ. I like the way that it worked. So that's it. Let's see here. Now, anyways, let us know what you choose. He's about to order a custom ear mold kit so he can get a better seal than what provided the tips provided from RHA. He wanted to know if we had any tips on making the ear molds, but then he tried some $5 memory foam tips from Comply.
I think it's Comply. I don't know. Yeah, it's E-L-Y. Complete.
It's got to be Comply.
I have no idea.
Comply.
You would think.
And he thinks that the fit and seal are great. So is there any need for custom ear molds? No, I guess. Custom ear molds are great because they are super comfortable. Okay. Right. The key when you make them is that you need to make sure that the when you put them in, they are exactly in the right spot. If not, you will they will fall out.
And then don't touch them.
Don't touch.
It's very tempting to wiggle it a little bit or something. Don't
touch them. Just leave them right there.
Yeah.
I did when I did my custom ear molds, the ones that I had for a while before those headphones that were attached to them broke. They one was perfect.
Yeah.
And the other one, not exactly perfect. It was very close to perfect.
Yeah, and
But
it's amazing how a little thing sticks out
and I
so
think, I mean, literally,
prominently.
like, don't move your jaw.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Just sit there. Don't talk to anybody. Don't move. Just sit in your chair for whatever the minutes are that they tell you to, +5. Just don't move. Don't blink. Don't move your head. Just be very still until they set.
Yeah,
That's the key.
yeah.
Um, they're super comfortable, and the Comply or any of these foam ones, or even the little rubber ones, the rubber tips, they are all compression,
Yep.
and eventually they hurt. I don't care how soft they are. Eventually they will bother you. Those memory foam tips, those uh, earplugs are made of the same material, and I used to wear them when I was a kid. I would wear them when I would, I say kid, 18, when I was working at a glass plant. Wore them all night, and you'd take them out, and I swear I always check my ears to see if they were bleeding because they felt like they were just raw uh, from that. So yeah, not super. I mean, that's the draw. And Will, in fact, Liz's husband, Will, he had custom stuff done. And I think he did
Hmm.
the thing where you go to your audiologist or whatever
Audiologist, yeah.
to have it done, and he just loved them to death.
Right.
But thought they were the best.
Yeah, because I think he's talking about the do-it-yourself ear mold
Hmm.
kits.
Hmm.
In which case, I mean, really, the only advice I would really say is read through the instructions about 5 to 10 times until you have them memorized, and then follow the instructions. Because everybody thinks they know better than the instructions, and it's like, no, just follow the instructions, memorize them, and follow them, and leave them alone when they're in your ears. Don't touch them. That's about all I can really say.
Yeah, I agree. Okay,
Yeah.
so speaking of, I don't know. No, I'm not going to talk about that. All right, Susmet started by saying he's a big fan of Avy Rant and wound up buying the Ascend Acoustic Sierra 2 speakers because of us. I'm not seeing on here how much he loves them, Rob. So does he love them?
According to the things he's been posting on Ascend Acoustics forum, he likes them very, very much. He says he's
Okay,
very happy.
good. To start, he'd like to know how to get the best audio quality possible when using Netflix. He had a terrible experience playing one of his favorite streams where everything sounded horribly distorted, but other streams sounded fine. Any way to make Netflix consistently good in audio quality? No, not that I'm aware
Nope.
of. I mean, if you're watching it on a computer, you can force, like a bit rate. You can
Right.
force a bit rate, but you can't do that on any other device that I'm aware of. Like, I know I can't do it on the I'm sorry, the Xbox One. Never been able to do it on the PlayStation 3. So no.
I mean, the audio on Netflix, they are using the Dolby Digital Plus
Hmm.
codec, but they're using the part of Dolby Digital Plus that allows them to use an even lower bit rate than regular Dolby Digital, with the claim that it has the same quality as regular Dolby Digital. Not better, just the same, using even less bandwidth. That's the thing that they're using. So it is very, very data compressed audio. There is really no ifs, ands, or buts about that. So the
But
audio quality, even at its best, is never going to be fabulous on
and
Netflix.
Netflix is not encoding these things themselves.
No.
That's what's you have to remember, because I've watched oodles of Netflix. That's all I have. I don't watch anything else. That's all I watch is Netflix. I occasionally watch Twitch because I'm a masochist, but I watch Netflix almost exclusively. And everyone, like, I'll come across an episode. I'm like, it's everything's coming out of the right speaker, all of it. Why is all of it coming out of the right speaker? And it was misencoded by
Right.
whoever sent it over. So they are not responsible for that. And you can complain to them all you want. They're not going to fix it. They got no way of fixing it, and they really don't care because they've got probably millions of streams up there, and they just can't worry about the fact that there's a little audio problem on that. And like, just do what I did, said to mono. Uh, but yeah, there is no way to force Netflix to be good.
No, because this isn't the fault of any of your equipment. This
No.
is just it's the stream that's being sent across. So yeah, I guess you could connect a computer to your system and force a certain data rate that is as good as you're going to be able to do.
But even that, it's more. That's more about the video than it's about the audio.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Oh yeah.
So, excuse me. Second, he was thrown for a bit of a loop when he went to his friend's house and heard his friend set up that uses Magnapan 1.7 speakers powered by Emotiva Electronics. He thought his friend's setup sounded better than his own, particularly with orchestral music, where he felt the Maggie plus Emotiva combo was so much better than the Sierra 2s and his Yamaha AV receiver that he cannot even describe it.
It's like, it's so much better. I can't even tell you how much better it was.
Yeah. What is causing this huge difference? Is it the speakers? Is it the Emotiva DAC and amplifier? It is the speakers. 100.
And very possibly the room.
Could be the room. It's the speakers.
Mm-hmm.
But the room is playing into that. But Magnapan speakers, yeah, that's a completely different animal, dude. That's like, that's like listened to sat 20 feet across the room from a sound bar, right, and then walking into somebody's full-fledged home theater, with custom, calibrated and well designed, well placed speakers and subwoofers all over the place and everything else, and going, this sounds so much better. Is it my receiver? Like, no, dude, it's the sound. You're sitting 20 feet away from a sound bar. What do you expect? No, and that's an extreme example. You're not going from a sound bar to this. You're going from very good sounding speakers, perfectly adequate electronics for those speakers, to Magnapan speakers, which are a planar speaker, have a completely different sonic signature. And probably, I don't know how much those things cost, but I'm guessing they cost more than the CR2s.
I don't even know, because the Maggie 1.7s aren't crazy expensive, as I recall. I do think they're more expensive than the CR2s. I might be wrong about that.
Under $5,000. So,
but no, the 3.7s are definitely over like $7-8 or something like that. Yeah. But no, I mean the Magnapan speakers are very, very different speakers. They are a true dipole, meaning they throw just as much sound out the back of them as they do out the front. And being a dipole, the sound coming out of the back is completely 180 degrees out of phase with the sound coming out the front. And what that means is directly to either side of the Magnapan speaker, there is no sound. There is a null there. There is no reflection coming off of that side wall directly to the sides of the speakers. Very different design. They are also way more directional. In the high frequencies in particular, there are almost like a laser beam. And so there are many things I wanted to address with this, because I think what's happened is he's like, I thought these Sierra 2s were going to be my be-all, end-all speakers, and then I heard something that made me say, whoa, this sounds even better. But there's a couple of issues, which is, one, I would, first of all, be very careful with were they playing at similarly loud levels, similar volumes, because when people demo their speakers, they very often turn them up pretty darn loud, and we tend to favor loud regardless of what's going on. So I'd be a little bit careful there that you're at least listening at the same volume levels. But more than that, did you sit in any other seats other than the sweet spot? Because I'm betting no.
No.
Because
yeah,
the biggest difference by far between the Magnapans and the Sierra 2s is with the Sierra 2s, they have nice wide dispersion. You can sit to either side of the sweet spot. You won't necessarily get rock solid center imaging when you do that, but you'll still get very good linear sound. You sit outside of the sweet spot with the Magnapans and they sound like a completely different speaker. It is very noticeable as you move from side to side listening to the Magnapans. So it is a case of when you have everything going for you. You're sitting in the sweet spot, you've got the room adjusted, you've got things set up within the room so that you're not getting some strange peaks and dips, which you can definitely get with dipolar speakers set up in any room. When you're having all of that going right for you, it sounds tremendous. But it only sounds tremendous in that one spot, and you have to make sure you're sitting there. So that's the trade-off. I mean, I will definitely say the Sierra 2s, they don't sound like an electrostatic speaker when you're sitting in the sweet spot. They don't sound like a magnaplanar speaker when you're sitting in the sweet spot. But as soon as you get out of that sweet spot, they sound better than either of those two because they have nice, wide, even dispersion that's linear everywhere else. So, yeah, you got to be a little careful there. And he mentioned himself on some other, like pop music, rock music, jazz music. He's like, the Megas didn't really sound any better there. So it was like one type of music in the sweet spot in a room that's different from his. I think he was just worried that it's the equipment.
the orchestral music,
Mm-hmm.
it probably has that sort of wide kind of reverberant sound, which is very
Mm-hmm.
forgiving of that dipole speaker. Which, if it's bouncing off that back wall and coming back, it's going to be very forgiving
Mm-hmm.
of that sort of delayed sound. I actually just talked to an electrostatic speaker designer, or I don't know if he's a designer, but a reseller recently, and he goes, a lot of people suggest taking your planar speakers, your electrostatic speakers, and moving them out into the room. But really, I always recommend putting them very close to your wall.
Yeah, I could see that.
You put them close to the wall, then that bounce that you're going to get from that dipole
Mm-hmm.
isn't that far behind the initial the
Right.
direct sound. So therefore, you're not getting that delayed response.
Well, if you put them really far away, then that would work too, because then the
Yeah.
ratio of direct sound
What
to
I said
reflected
was,
sound.
I'm putting an acoustical panel behind there, no matter what
Yep.
you say. You can't
Yep.
stop me from doing that, because that's what I'm going to do. Because I'm going to absorb as much of that sound as possible. He goes, yeah, that's the other thing you can do. I'm like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's the right thing. Anyways, but go on. Lastly, he has wait a second. He's currently using a Yamaha RXV 775 AV receiver. He's wondering whether it would be better to add a separate stereo amplifier or upgrade the entire receiver to something like the Marantz SR 7009. After hearing the Emotiva setup, he's concerned he didn't spend enough on his electronics. I honestly don't think that's your problem, dude. I
Nope.
think that what we just talked about with the speakers, it is the speakers. Yes, the room, yes, all
And
this other
and
stuff. It
possibly
is
the
the
setup. Yep.
speakers.
Yeah.
He needs to have Emotiva, gear, because those planar speakers are power hungry.
Yeah.
Yours are not.
Yeah.
So you don't need that gear. But if you want it, you can buy it, but you don't need it. And don't expect that by buying it, you're going to suddenly get that that planar sound. You're not gonna.
Yes. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
I
get
think.
400-pound monoblock amps, and
Yeah.
it's still not going to sound like a planar speaker.
No, I think what's happened is because I wanted to address just the overall thinking, because I think Sushmet has fallen into the same way of thinking that tons of people do, which is like this piece of equipment equals this sound, right? Which
Yeah.
is, I mean, that's a logical way to think of things. It is that way for a lot of other products, but in audio, it isn't the case, because the room and the setup makes such a tremendous difference that it isn't just, if I get this one piece of gear and put it into my system, I'm going to achieve this sound that I heard in the store or that I heard at my friend's house or whatever it is. Because it just isn't a one-to-one thing like that. Sometimes people hear, like, I just heard this subwoofer, it sounded great where I heard it, so I'm going to buy that subwoofer and put it into my room and not do a subwoofer crawl or set it up the way that AV Rant tells me to set up. I'm just going to buy that one subwoofer and put it in my room, and I'm going to expect the same results because I have the same piece of equipment. And then they're like, it doesn't sound the same as what I heard. It's like, yeah, that's all the other parts of your system count just as much as any one piece of equipment. So you are definitely not going to transform your speakers. And I don't know how they're set up in his room exactly. He has some pictures and a description coming up later, so we know a little bit about that. But, addressing all of it in a comprehensive sense is what's necessary here. Just replacing the Yamaha receiver with Emotiva gear, it is not going to transform your sound. I wouldn't say at all. I mean, maybe a
Yeah,
tiny little
zero.
bit.
It will.
You might hear a tiny little difference.
Well, yeah, and if you get rid of your room correction, whatever room correction you're
Right.
using, for something that doesn't have room correction, then it will transform your sound to something that sounds worse.
Yeah, and the one he has is YPOW with reflected sound control and multi-point measurement.
Well, then there you
which
go.
is pretty up there. Like I've said, I think, in my opinion, it's about equivalent to Mult EQ XT in the Odyssey thing. It's not quite XT32. It's like Mult EQ XT. They're sort of equivalent. So, yeah, I'm not seeing you getting any large difference whatsoever by changing out your AV receiver. That is not what I would do. If you want to add a stereo amp, I mean, like we've always said, you get a good stereo amp, you're never going to be angry. You can always use that thing, but it is still not going to transform the sound of your speakers into something completely different. That is not what is making the difference.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. If they're not struggling to begin with, it's not going to make any difference. I'm trying to open up this picture of his
And
because
you
I'm
didn't
not
you didn't
understanding what he's-
you didn't underspend on your Yamaha. That is a perfectly fine choice of electronics to drive the Sierra 2s.
No, absolutely, I agree. No.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, lastly, yes. Yeah. Okay. Lastly, he has $700 to spend on one subwoofer right now, with plans to add a second later. He mostly listens to music, but he enjoys movies too. So, what we recommend? A little bit about his room. His apartment's on the first floor and has stairs leading up to the house.
So I guess he's renting a suite in a ground floor of a house or something like that.
I don't understand.
Kind of like having an in-law. It's like having an in-law suite in a house, I guess, and he's renting it. I would assume if he calls it an apartment.
You have to come in. No, so he's got what? He has stairs that go up to his first floor.
No, he's on the ground floor, and then he
Yes.
has stairs that go up to the rest of the house. He's renting like a 950
So do people
square
have to
foot
walk through his place to get to the rest
There
of
must be a separate entrance.
That's very weird. I don't understand what he's talking about. Anyways, okay. He mostly listens to music. His apartment's on the first floor and has stairs leading up to the house. On the right side of his room is open to a large volume. The room is open from the back. It has a kitchen, hallway, and other rooms. So that he's basically, when you walk in from his stairs that go to wherever they go to, you're walking into the home theater, which is like this front room. Okay, and from what I can tell, he's facing out. He's facing out the window at his speakers and TV.
That's right. Yeah, his TV is right in front of a window.
Behind him is the kitchen and dining, I guess kitchen, and then the hallway that leads back to other stuff.
And basically, about half of his he says 960 square feet is the total size of the whole place that he's living in. And about half of it is this living, dining, kitchen area. So he's dealing with, I don't know, 480 square feet or so, something like that.
Left side is flat, while the right side has a very strange shape. And that strange shape is it's got a couple angles to it.
Yeah, it's got a few angles in it and a hallway.
The window behind his TV, I'd like to know whether a specific treatment will help negate its presence. Put some
big thick drapes.
Drapes would be nice, just so it gets dark in there. The ceiling is 9 feet high and an uneven height, so it must go up and down.
Yep.
This is really bizarre description here. The current distance between the speakers and seating position is about 7.8 feet. The distance between the midpoint of the speakers and listening position is about 7 feet. So he's got the golden triangle thing going on.
Okay.
So what are we supposed to be answering here? I forgot. He's got $700 to spend on a subwoofer. So does he want to know what to buy or where to put it?
What to buy mainly with his $700 or so budget. He did have a concern because again he was like, sealed or ported. Is that going to make a difference? Given that more music than movies is like, nope. You want output. You want the correct amount of output and extension for your room size. So given that about half of his apartment is this space that's open, and he's got sort of 9-foot ceilings, he's dealing with around 4,000 cubic feet, I think. Around that, which gets you into large room territory, for certain. Which means you need some pretty good output. Well, the thing is, I assume there are other people living in this house.
I'm wondering if the stairs lead up to above him. If that's the case, then
I would think so.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess they could lead down. He's on the first
basement.
Well, he's on the first floor, so they could lead down.
I mean, but
to
I don't know if the stairs. This is very confusing. I mean,
he has a patio, so he's not in a basement. He has a patio.
How do we know? He could be in a dungeon for all I know.
He said it's the first floor. So.
The first floor of what?
First floor means ground, right? First floor is ground floor.
I don't know. So if you're in like a big high rise, it's the first floor is the one above the lobby.
No, first floor is the lobby floor. Is the ground floor. It's the first floor.
Whatever. Okay, so anyways, we don't know if you have common walls. It looks like you must. He must have a common wall.
And you have someone either above you or below you, because those stairs don't go to nowhere. So
we don't know this. This could be the MC Escher band, for all we know. It's just people twisting circuits.
It just turns around and comes back in the door.
That's right. He keeps walking out. You walk out the stairs and you end up on the patio. Dang it! It's like that episode of Star Trek when every time they left, they got back on the brick. So, you need output. You want ported.
Yeah,
I believe. Your placement options really looks like the place. I'm assuming that you can't put it underneath what looks to be the counter. Behind your sofa,
or like right under your TV, right smack dab in the middle of that front wall, because that would be the best place to put it, to be honest.
I would actually put it if you can squeeze one in, like where the stairs door opens,
Nah.
right like on that utility. That's right where the word utility is. You can't see it. I mean, I'm looking at it. But if you look at the sofa, it would be as far to the right as possible.
To the right.
Yeah, and the one to the left of the sofa. So you're going left and
Yeah,
right across the room.
he could. Yeah. Yeah,
But
because there's no
if
way
it
he's
were,
putting. There's no way he's doing front and back because it's the
yeah,
kitchen
right.
is his back wall.
Yeah,
So.
you got to put it in the stove. How do you feel about cooking with it? Instead of actually cooking food, you just have a subwoofer in there. How about that? Yeah, so that's where I would put it, is like that. If you can't do that, then behind what you have listed as S2, which would be your right front speaker in that weird sort of corner, and then
Yeah.
one behind your seated position on the back left, tucked underneath your kitchen counter, which I imagine is not really feasible because that somebody's going to want to sit there eventually. But
Yeah,
I
but
would
right
go.
now right now he's starting with one and just concerned about getting a subwoofer that is suitable for his room.
Yeah,
So PP
cylinder.
2000, PP 2000 would certainly work from SVS.
Yeah,
HSU VTF 3
I think he
Outlaw.
needs cylinders, dude. You don't think he needs cylinders?
Yeah, cylinders would be good here.
I think cylinders would
Less
work
floor
because
space.
he's got less floor space, and
So PC 2000.
frankly, you could sort of lie one down the front of the room over by that underneath that window, and lie
Yeah.
one down underneath that couch right there. And if you have the right stools, people might not even know this. They're probably going to know this. Let's be reasonable.
You can't pull the stools back if you put them in between the legs of the chairs.
What is this an
That's
end
not-
table? This is a very strange table with the grill on top. I'm very concerned about this table.
You
you've got
really
over
like
here.
your cat. You got very expensive scratching posts.
It's funny. I see the scratching post. I don't see the cat. Don't smell the cat. There's no kitty litter anywhere. Concerned you don't actually have a cat, but you have massive cat scratch posts. Yeah. So I would go with the cylinder, honestly, dude. I think I
Okay,
would go with
yeah,
the
PC
cylinder.
2000 would definitely do you very well in terms of
Did I-
output and
is
extension.
that $700? I don't know how much this costs.
Oh, that might be 800. Yeah, you might be right.
You might have to bump up.
But all of those in that range. So Outlaws, Ultra 12, HSU's VTF 3. They're all in that range. Power Sound Audio, I guess. I mean, they've got a big 15-incher that they're selling off because they just replaced their second generation models with their third generation models. So they do it, but I don't know if I go for a box that size in a room this size. That's crazy overkill.
You've got a small place. You want cylinders. You want to go
Yeah.
high. You don't want
Yeah,
to go wide.
take up less floor space. Yeah,
That's my number one recommendation.
that's what I did.
That's what I did too.
Yeah.
I did it for two reasons. One, I wanted to keep as little floor space, and I think cylinders are freaking cool, and I have always thought that, and I've always wanted a cylinder sub since my very first got into home theater. I always wanted one, and I'm so happy I got them. All right. It has been a million years since this podcast started, so we're going to stop now. And
Yep.
I guess, we're just going to harken back to the good old days. We're going to have to bump Infinite Gary to next week because there ain't no way we're answering A through
Nope,
F.
there's too many.
before this thing gets done. And we've got Dawn, who's got something else we want to contact on that I have not in any way looked at, so I'm not going to comment on it.
I think that one will keep, so we're all right.
Yeah, and I think since then we've got some more questions from Scott. Did we already answer a Scott question?
So Scott has a new one
Yeah,
that just
Scott's-
came in today. So
Yeah, Scott's got one, and I'm not sure if this Seshmet one is the one we just answered or if it was something else. So,
I think it was the one we just answered.
Oh,
Barney sent something new too.
do we
So
have a
there you go.
C?
That's
who's
coming
this?
for next week.
Montgomery, is that something?
No, I don't have that one.
Ooh, I'll have this. That was a loudness stuff,
Okay.
I guess. Yes. that
Oh
was
yes,
loudness.
C. Montgomery. That's Mike. Strange
Oh.
enough.
Obviously. Oh, I don't
Yes.
know why I didn't get that. All right. So, to get your questions answered on this podcast, it's very easy. Just give us an email, rob@avrant.com, tom at avrant.com. They'll go to the podcast website, www.avrant.com. There you can also leave us a donation. You can listener of the week, or you can send us an email and tell us how you support the podcast in your own special way. Not all of you are race car drivers, but if you were, you could stick a sticker on your car. That would be awesome. Bigger the better. You can also go to facebook.com/avrantpodcast. Twitter @FirstReflect is Rob, @avrant_Tom for me. All right, guys, for AV Rant, I am Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Oh, I forgot there was this email from Tom, too. I didn't send it to you. He asked me about a review I did of Snell speakers that apparently I did 6 years ago. And I don't think I reviewed
Well,
them.
Snell is out of business now, so it's going to be tough.
I don't know. Yeah. So he wants me to remember that, and he wants me to compare them to other things that I haven't heard. So we'll get to you next week, too, there, Tom. And for everybody else, we will have the after party in a few minutes.